Welcome to part two of our Saratoga 2018 season recap. We'll kick things off on the jockey side. One of our favorite jockeys, Rajiv Mehra, was on the sidelines for a while with an injury, but he's been back racing right now. We caught up with Rajiv. Again, live from the Saratoga backstretch. The beauty of that is everybody's a golf cart ride away, and happy to be joined this morning by Rajiv Mehra, one of the more popular guys in the jockey colony up here. Rajiv, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Happy to have you join us, and we'll talk a little bit about what the routine is like for a jockey up here at Saratoga and more. Before we do that, I always like to ask the jockeys, the trainers, really everybody. Ask Liz Crow, a bloodstock agent. How'd you get into the game?
Well, it's a family thing, tradition. I grew up in Kingston, Jamaica, and my dad and my uncles, they were riding horses back then, and so I always wanted to be like them, and that's how I got caught up into horse racing and loved it.
What was the path you took? How did you get to the track and then on horses to actually start riding?
Well, I didn't ride back home. But I used to always go to the track in the mornings with my dad and stuff, and then I pursued the career when I moved to Florida. As a teenager, I wanted to be a jockey still, so I went to Calder, and that's where I first started getting on horses when I graduated high school in Florida when I was 18 years old. And 9 months after galloping, I started riding races. So.
You remember your first winner?
Oh yeah, my first winner was in Tampa in 2014, a horse named Price-Dale Kid. 2004, sorry. The Price-Dale Kid, and I won my first two races on the same horse, so I'll never forget that horse.
Yeah, nice. Speaking of winning, let's go back, pull up a replay from yesterday, the third race on yesterday's card. You were on number 4 Sport for Jimmy Bond. We're going to watch the stretch run here, make a nice late move, and you win going away as the second choice. Got to be nice. You're only a few days into the meet. Get your win under the belt, and it was a nice ride on Sport yesterday.
Thank you. It's always good to get the monkey off your back, I guess. But I was really looking forward to this horse running. I'm just glad it stayed on the turf yesterday. That was half the battle, and the horse delivered like we expected him to.
And again, nice performance to get a win up here at Saratoga very early in the meet. Still plenty of time to add to that as we go along, and I'm sure that will happen. But I also want to go back to last year. I'll let the guys cue up the tape because you were on By the Moon in the Ballerina last year, August 26th. But I wanted to show this because it was a nice Grade 1 win up at Saratoga, and I believe it was the first Grade 1 since your comeback. So that had to be a nice feeling to get that one under the belt.
Oh yeah, definitely. After my injuries and almost not being able to ride again, to be able to come back and win a race at such a high level, it was really fulfilling for me, and this filly brought me a lot of joy last year.
Yeah, I'm sure. And again, getting a great one up at Saratoga, months into comeback. So you're what, about a year, a little over a year since you've been back?
Yes, like a year and a half since I've been back.
And if folks don't know, bad spill, you were on the sidelines for quite a while. How do you feel now?
I'm feeling great.
Nice.
Thankfully. I'm blessed to be in full 100% health, and just awesome.
And fill us in a little bit, because again, you were on the sidelines for a while, and I believe kind of a body cast thing, so you were mobilized for a little while. And I'm sure the doctors at some point say, "Oh, okay, you're good to go. You can start exercising." But then there had to be a rehab period just to, if you're immobilized, just to get back to kind of regular fitness, and then you have to have another level where you get back to riding fitness. Take us from the point where the doctor said, okay, you can start getting ready now, and then how did the rehab go, and then getting ready to race ride?
Okay, so I didn't ride for a 16-month period. So the first year was just to get healthy. I was still not fully healed, my bones and stuff, and I was just really banged up. And after that, to reverse all that time in a body brace, I spent 9 months in a body brace, so I was in really stiff. It took months of rehab just to get me to be mobile, and then I had to spend another few months getting strength. And once I got back on a horse, I had no balance. It was just so hard. It was like starting from scratch. You'd think that it would be like riding a bicycle, once you know how to do it, but the physical part of it is a lot harder to get the strength and the balance to ride horses. So that's why combined it took me so long to come back to riding.
Yeah, I can imagine. As I say, it's not just the kind of rehab that a guy like me would have, where you just kind of get fit. You got then have to get race fit as well. And for folks who don't know, talk a little bit about that. What is the fitness level for a jockey? Because I don't think, we look and we think, oh, the guys are out there sitting on the saddle. You really aren't sitting on the saddle. You're on the balls of your feet and a mile and an eighth.
Yeah.
You have to be at a top fitness level to maintain your strength through that kind of a race.
Right. Every athlete has a different things that they need to excel on, strength-wise and stuff. I think for jockeys, the things that most important for us are our balance with our legs, to be able to be mobile in the saddle, and if you don't have good balance with your legs, it's going to be hard to be flexible on the horse. So that's the key, and also it's also like a total body workout. So we also need strong arms. Very important to have a strong core to stay, stable in the saddle and be able to push it around and stuff. So,
is that something you work on every day in some fashion, or does just the riding, once you get riding fit, does the riding itself keep you fit?
Riding fit keeps you fit.
Yeah.
Riding a lot of horses keeps you fit. But also, if you want to be at peak condition, I think it doesn't hurt to be to work on it off the track as well. Working out. I mostly just do core maintenance stuff like planking or Pilates and stuff. I don't really do severe like weights.
Sure.
But for me, I feel like it works best if you have the race fitness and also the other stuff too.
And what do you do as a jockey to prepare for the next day, let's say? You know what mounts you have the next day. What kind of homework do you do? Is it looking in the PPs? Do you watch replays? To just from the everyday riding, I'm sure you're familiar with not only some of the horses you're on, but some of the competition, and being familiar with the strategies other jockeys in the room use. But how do you prep for that race the next day?
Well, personally, I as soon as the past performances are available on DRF, I download them to my phone. So I'll know every horse that I'm riding days in advance and their competition. And I already have an imagination of what's going to happen. But also, the key, you have to wait until the scratches. Scratches change the races a lot. But I also want to be able to, when I run into owners or trainers, that they see that I'm prepared, or we can talk about the race sometimes a day or two before. So I always take a glance at the PPs a few days out.
Sure.
But then in the morning of the races, after getting the scratches, I'll watch certain replays that I think I need to watch to pick up certain things, and then I'll really break it down to see the race, and then just go out and try to execute what I think.
Yeah, had the game plan in your head, and sometimes obviously you have to go to plan B.
Right. Well, it all changes with scratches and post draws and all that, and also track conditions and stuff. If the race track is playing favorable to, and then the gate opens and it all changes again. You might stumble, or you might break faster than you want it to, be closer, and then you have to adjust or see.
That as a handicapper and a bettor, that's a good question too. I'll ask you. So you go in the paddock, and the trainer says to you, I want to sit about third and then make your move coming into the stretch, but your horse beats the gate. Do you then say, well, it's up to me, we beat the, I'm not going to strangle him back, and I'm making the decisions now, so you got to kind of change it up given what happened coming out of the gate?
Well, two of the fundamentals are, I don't ever like to give up anything that I get easy in a horse race. That's one of the things. And the second thing is, I don't believe in strangling horses because it takes away their run. That being said, there's certain horses that I've ridden in the past that no matter what the pace is, you have to be behind. They won't pack their same punch if they're close. And there's horses that are flexible that that, well, if you get the advantage of beating the gate, you don't want to give it up. So in general, I won't give up anything that comes easy, or I won't strangle a horse if I break good. But there's those certain horses that are very specific to ride that that if you don't do what they want, they're not going to put in their run. So you kind of just have to give it up.
Take us through a typical day for a jockey. People see you out here in the afternoon, obviously, walk into the paddock, have a conversation with the trainer, get on the horse ride. But it starts very early, obviously. You show up here in the morning, and at a place like Saratoga, also there's a little bit of a social scene and whatnot. So take us through a typical day up here. When do you get up and when do you get home and go to bed?
Here, I typically get up at 5:30, between 5:30 and 6. Usually my first workers are at 7 o'clock, and we'll be working horses sometimes here until 10:30 or 11 because turf workouts are like 3 times a week, and they start at 10 a.m. And then once we're done working horses, well, I'll try to, if I have time to go home and change, especially if I get dirty working and stuff, I'll try to go home and change. But sometimes if I start riding early, and then I can't go home, so I just have to go straight to the jockey's room and prepare for my races. Then go through the afternoon riding and stuff, and after that, you'll be tired, so you just want to go home and have dinner and then go to sleep. Obviously, there's a social scene here. It's a great time to interact with a lot of owners and trainers that I don't get to see all the time, especially just being in New York. So because they're all over the country, a lot of people come here, so it's a good time for me to expose myself to them.
Sure.
So I try to interact as much as I can, but my priority is to ride and be energized on race day, so I just try to get the best of both worlds.
How many horses would you typically work in a morning?
Well, it's been really quiet the last week due to the inclement weather, but it can get really busy here for sure. I would say a morning, an average morning would be 5 horses, give or take. I'm working here.
And we talked about the social scene, and I want you to push it a little bit so folks will go over and take advantage, because I know you participate every year across the street in the Jockey Karaoke for the PDJF, which is a great charity, permanently disabled jockeys fund every year. Every other year down at the Clubhouse Racebook, we do in Albany, we do a nice event, and so we certainly promote the PDJF and getting them that charity money, and in fact they're one of our charity bet rotation organizations as well. But it's always fun across the street Monday night coming up in Vapor, and I saw on your Twitter feed you're asking for comments on what you and Julian should sing this year. Right.
So yeah, we're gonna sing "Push It" by Salt and Pepper. So we were rehearsing last night, trying to get the song down. You know, this karaoke should be a karaoke / comedy show, because that's really what it's very entertaining, and also it's for the great cause. Yeah. We're doing it. It's one of our biggest events that we host for the PDJF, and we've gotten a lot of support for it over the years. So we just continue to try to make it entertaining for people to come.
Amazingly, there are usually videos online afterwards. As you say, a lot of it is very entertaining, but there's usually 1 or 2 guys where you go, wow, that guy's pretty good.
Oh yeah, there'll be a couple ringers that show up. We all work hard at it. Us jockeys, most of us.
Amazed you were rehearsing.
Most of us, well, we need to rehearse because most of us aren't naturally talented at singing or dancing. But we really try. You know, we're trying hard to put on a good show.
And again, it's Monday night across the street at the Harness Track in Vapor, and it's for a great cause, the PDJF. So turn out for that, and get to see all the jocks giving it a shot. As I say, there's usually a couple in there where you go, wow, okay, that is very entertaining nonetheless. Rajiv, absolutely appreciate the visit. Again, congratulations on the nice win yesterday. Keep it going throughout the meet.
Thank you. Thank you, man.
Rajiv Marab. Had a great time talking with Rajiv Marab, really one of the nicest guys in the jockey colony. Coming up next, Robertina Diodoro, one of the high percentage trainers in the country, came up to Saratoga, put together a nice little meet. We caught up with them very early in the Saratoga season. As promised before the break, joined now by Robertina Diodoro. As I said at the top of the show, I'm sure he's become a familiar name to everybody out in the audience, as he has appeared in New York after having successful seasons at many venues around the country, but his first season up here at Saratoga last year, and as I say, now familiar name, but I thought we'd take a couple of minutes to maybe introduce you to him personally. Thanks for stopping by.
No, thanks for having me.
Happy to have you join us. And doing a little bio research last night, I always like to ask trainers this: how did you get into the game? And as many trainers, it looks like kind of a family thing pulled you in.
Yeah, no, I was born into it. My mom's side of the family was always into it, and I was actually just kind of born at the racetrack. I was always around it.
And tell us the steps that brought you to becoming a licensed trainer.
My grandpa he was just a small trainer, just had 2-3 horses all the time, and he had one horse left. I took over, and when I was 17, 18 on the bush tracks up in Canada, and here we are today.
Yeah, it's interesting, you know, the path you've taken, and we'll get into that a little bit. You remember your first winner?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Everybody seems to remember that. What was the name?
Manchu Prince.
Was that on one of the bush tracks, or was that when you moved on?
That was a track. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
You still have the photo posted?
Oh yeah,
something like
yeah,
that?
yeah.
Everybody seems to remember that. It's funny. I was at the Andy Serling radio show when you were on with him last year. I don't know whether you're going to remember the answer to this, but if you don't, I'll remind you. But you were talking about the early years. You trained up in Canada, and there's no winter racing there. And so Andy said, "Well, what did you do in the winter?"
Yeah, sold Christmas trees. Yeah,
Christmas tree salesman by night, trainer by day. Very
there
good.
you go.
Now, of course, and you hit my radar. Here on the OTB network, we do a lot of handicapping shows, and it was probably 6-7 years ago. We were doing the morning handicapping show, and every week we would have Michael Chamberlain from Turf Paradise and do a little handicapping. So that's when you kind of started to hit my radar. But going back to before when you made the move to the States and had the winter base, and again going to Canada where you didn't have winter racing, I'm just curious because it's still that way in Canada. Woodbine will shut down for the winter, Fort Erie, and if you watch those races in the spring, a lot of the horses won't have run since the last meet. What do you do with the horses in the wintertime?
Yeah, it's tough for those the local people up there. Just you know, we used to spring train up there. You start in January, and you know, minus 30 weather.
Yeah.
It's tough, you know, and you know, that's one of the reasons why I started coming down to the States is the weather, and going back up to Canada in the spring with you know, fit horses and horses that have been, you know, winter raced.
So when a track closes like that and there's the winter, you just find a farm for them and they just run around in the snow for a couple months?
Yeah.
And then how do you prepare them to get back to the race? And are those, just from a handicapping standpoint, are we smart to think, they probably need a race?
Yeah. No, definitely, you know, in Alberta, you know, the big angle on handicapping was any horses that came out of California and Arizona. That's the two places where guys would go by and claim horses, and those horses were pretty tough to outrun the first month of racing in Alberta.
As you said, eventually down to the States, and as you hit my radar screen at Turf Paradise, and it was fun to watch you. You were a high percentage guy down there, and subsequently saw you make the move out to Southern California and do well there, and then migrate east. Oak Lawn is one of my favorite winter tracks, and you've been there, and now the past couple of seasons up in New York. And I went and looked at Equibase, going back to results over the past couple of days and entries going forward a couple more days. Horses at Canterbury, Monmouth, Evangeline, Laurel, Saratoga, and Prairie Meadows. I'm just going to ask the nuts and bolts of that. I'm assuming if we had gone back 20 years before the internet and cell phones, that would have been almost impossible. I think technology has to play into that kind of a thing.
Oh, definitely. It'd be impossible to do it without, like you said, the technology, and got to have good help too. Technology and good help, and that's you know, been a big part of our success the last couple of years is having great help and good team put together.
Talk a little bit about, with that many tracks, you're obviously poring over that many condition books. How does that process work? Do the assistants point you to, oh, let's think about this spot, this spot, this spot? Are you going through all those condition books on a regular basis?
I go through them regularly, but at different tracks we have different systems, and some tracks my assistant does the entering, and other tracks I do it. But overall, I mean, between the phone and my iPad, I'm on it 24/7.
Yeah,
so.
I could imagine, as they say, without the technology, it seems like that would be hard to do. As I was driving in this morning, I thought to ask you a question that I have not asked any other trainer, but I should ask them all. And I don't know whether you'll have a clever answer or not, but I'm just curious. To me, training is something you have to have a real passion for. It's a tough job. You're up early, and it's really a 24/7, 365 taking care of horses, and you have to please the owners. You have to get the wins. So, what makes you enjoy being a trainer? What's the best part about being a trainer?
Competitiveness. I mean, I love horses, but winning is. I think as I get older, I'm getting worse. I hate losing. Guess that's a good thing. But the competitiveness. You know, I've always been competitive in anything I've done, and like I said, love horses, and then the winning of a race is the best feeling ever. And when you're on a roll, it's the best feeling. But of course, when you hit a slump, which we've all been there before, it's not so much fun.
Yeah, at the percentage you do, must be happy time. You've been in the top five, fifth in wins nationally in 2017, fourth in 2016. Currently, you're sitting third nationally. Some of the titles recently, you were second at Oaklawn this year. You were first down at Turf Paradise over the 2017-2018 season. I wanted to go to Oaklawn, though. How long have you been racing at Oaklawn?
This coming year will be our 5th year.
And just like to get your impression of Oaklawn, mainly because clearly you're a claiming guy. You like the claiming game. You've had some stakes winners as well, so I'm not saying you're only in the claiming game, but clearly that's something you play and play at a high level. And during the year, we'll talk a lot with Nancy Holthus down at Oaklawn, and we talk about, boy, the claim box is on fire at Oaklawn, so that must be a meet you really enjoy.
Oh, it's the biggest rush ever. I mean, the people really get into it, the whole town, and it's good racing, big fields, and like you said, the claiming, it's a rush. It's at the end of it's a roughly a 3.5 month meet. When you're done that meet, you need a little break. It's stressful, but it's exciting. It's a rush.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite meets to play during the year. And again, it's fun just to watch that claiming game go along. And then even at the end of the meet, and you had a lot of those, the horses that you claim towards the end of the meet and then go to other venues. Because I always feel, from a handicapping standpoint, I think horses leave Oaklawn with a fitness advantage.
Yeah, I mean, that track can get a little deeper, and yeah, you're probably right. I mean, they seem to definitely go on and win all over the country. So
yeah, for me, that's kind of a handicapping angle in that month or 6 weeks after Oaklawn ends. Talk a little bit about the claiming game for folks who maybe aren't familiar. What is your process? Do you sit down and talk with the owners? Do the owners give you a call? Hey, I'm looking at a horse. How do you decide which horses you're going to dip in for in the claiming game?
A little bit of both. Sometimes the owners will contact me, but I always say I'm only one person, so we're a team, and I got a couple guys behind the scenes that watch replays and read the sheets for me. My assistants, they're on top of things as well, watching horses, their previous race in the paddock and receiving barn, but it's all a team effort. Like I said, I'm only one person, and I'd be lying to you if I told you I read sheets and replays and etc. So we all put it all together by morning of each race day.
And take us through the process. I had Gary Gullo in yesterday, and we talked a little bit about it from the claiming side. But what is, when you decide we're going to go for that horse this afternoon, what is the actual process that you undertake?
Up here, my assistant, he's the one that fills out the claims, and either one of us or both of us, we start at the receiving barn on the golf cart and slowly make our way up to the paddock. Unless it's a horse that we've had previously, that's different. We usually just hit the claim box, but a horse that we've never claimed before, it's it's a 20-minute or so process, and to do it right, and then lots of time there's a phone call involved too. It depends on what owner it is. So.
You mentioned the sheets. This is something I have asked trainers in the past. I'm guessing then speed figures play into your training in some fashion. And what figures do you like to use?
I'm not a sheets guy.
Okay.
I got a couple guys again that read sheets and that. I'm not saying I'm a believer in it, but I think part of it too is I'm not a gambler, so I don't bet. Right. So I know a lot of the handicappers definitely believe in the sheets. I like to watch replays. I like to see a horse in the morning or in a previous race, in the paddock, his appearance, and especially young horses, how they're put together.
Talk a little bit about Saratoga. This is your second season up here now. What are your impressions of Saratoga racing and just the community in general?
No, it definitely reminds me a lot of Oaklawn, how the town gets into it. You stop at Starbucks in the morning, there's someone in there with a racing form, or Dunkin' Donuts. You go for dinner at night, the guys got their sports coats in their hand and their racing forms all wrinkled up in their back pockets still. So it's a great atmosphere, and like I said, it does remind me a lot of Oaklawn, how the town gets behind it.
Are you based up here during the meet?
I stay here most of the time. I've rented a place up here the last 2 years, and I'm up here most of the meet.
No, and I'm assuming that the frequent flyer miles must be totaling up, though.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of travel.
Which, again, if you're competitive and you're playing the game at the high level you are, and with these various venues, that's got to be fun and rewarding because you're doing well at all the various venues. Speaking of doing well, first I wanted to pull up one of your wins from the meet and just let folks take a look at a Robertina d'Oro winner. We're going to go back to July 30th, watch the stretch run of a nice little starter allowance race. This is going to be number 8, Special Relativity, under the jockey who's pretty much regularly riding for you, David Cohen. Wins by a couple of lengths. Nice little filly that had started in one of these races similarly in Belmont. The previous start, you had claimed her a couple of starts before this win, so always nice to get a win up at Saratoga.
No, definitely, and you know, she didn't get the perfect trip the first time we ran her back here. On paper, we loved the race, loved drawing the outside with her, and David did a great job with her. You know, just off the pace a little bit, and like I said, I think the outside post definitely helped her. But she's a nice big filly. She's nice horse.
Yeah, a nice win. Always nice to get some wins up at Saratoga, and you have a little pocket full of them at this point. And I also had to go, as I was looking on Equibase, I had to pull up this race. I don't know whether I've ever shown a replay from Asanobia Downs before, but the Manitoba Derby, I wanted to show this. You finished 1-2-4 in here, so it's a Robertino D'Adoro Exacta, but we're going to watch the number 4 Sky Promise win. And as I say, I had to pull this up because just kind of digging a little bit. You had claimed the horse previously down at Churchill Downs. Did you have this race in mind when you claimed the horse?
Yeah.
That's a nice claim.
There's a little series of derbies up in Canada, and I got a lot of owners that are still from up there, and we like to go through the little derby trail up there. So this horse had a friend and a guy behind the scenes, Cody Autry, picked this horse out for me, and he was bound and determined this horse could run on the dirt. He was all grass horse before, and he was right. Horse ran a big race on the dirt.
That's a nice claim. Claimed him for 40. Claimed him down at Churchill, and then take him up to Assiniboia. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yep, Assiniboia Downs.
And is that the western part of Canada?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you. Yeah, a little more east, but
okay.
It's
I'm not sure where
part of the prairies.
Okay.
Yeah.
And as I was reading a little bit comments after that race, and you mentioned the series of derbies, the Canadian Derby at Northlands on the 25th. Next for that one.
Yeah. We got a couple up there already, and that's a week this Saturday, the 25th.
That was nice. A crafty claim. So good job done there. And again, appreciate the visit this morning. Wanted to introduce people to you as, again, your name has become more prominent here in New York, but folks are familiar all over the country, and certainly will become more familiar as we go forward. As I say, a little pocket full of wins already at Saratoga. We wish you a lot of luck going forward.
No, appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Robertina D'Adoro. Up next, Brian Edo on the Saturday morning show caught up with trainer Mike McCarthy.
Joined by Mike McCarthy. Mike, I appreciate you stopping by Saturdays at the spa. Mike's going to bring in City of Light. And if you're not familiar, I know Mike's based on the West Coast, and City of Light has predominantly been on the West Coast all year. But I mentioned it earlier, City of Light, for my money, and no disrespect to Mind Your Biscuits, who's been phenomenal as a New York bred. City of Light is, to me, the most impressive one-turn horse in the country, but I kind of use that loosely because he's a lot more than the one-turn horse, a lot of versatility as you bring in a pretty heavy favorite, Mike, for the foregoal.
Yeah, we're certainly excited to be here. A race like this, with a hefty reputation, coming from California, shipping in here to Saratoga, so basically across the country to come and run in Saratoga's biggest day and one of racing's biggest days is a real honor for us.
And a little bit of a homecoming of you of sorts. We talked off the air. This is, and I give credit to Dave Grenning who pulled this one out, Delhi Racing Form. 16 years to the day when you started with Todd Pletcher. So you're back in Saratoga. You started with Todd in 2002. You worked with Quality Road, City of Light sire. Talk a little bit about your time with Todd and how he prepared you for days like this in one of the absolute, the top-notch outfit, in the country for shipping horses and that, being a presence across the country.
Yeah, certainly. He set the foundation for what we're doing today. Everything that we kind of do sort of runs through that model. I couldn't think of a better place to get an education. It was a very important time in my life. The relationships I made, not only on the racetrack but off the racetrack, have suited me to this day, and to be able to come back here stable with him, as you guys just mentioned, 16 years to the day. I'm as nervous today as I was 16 years ago.
Todd's a disciple of Wayne Lucas, and when you think of Wayne, and then certainly of Todd, it's the the shed row with no stone unturned. It's the the flowers, and every T is crossed and I is dotted. As a trainer, what is there any one thing you took from Todd that you think has helped you more than anything?
I took a few things from him. Organization would be one, would be number one. Number two would be dedication, and they can easily be flip-flop. And try your best every day. I think Todd is, I've said this before, he's the gold standard in showing up every day, leaving it all out there. So if we can capture a little bit of that every day, we're in good shape.
Right. You went out on your own in 2014. Is it safe to say the horse you're going to lead over today, City of Light, is the best one you've had?
Yeah, that's hands down. We started in 2014 with one horse.
Yeah.
We built it up to close to 40 today. Obviously, being on the West Coast, a little harder to attract the numbers than it would be back here in a heavily horse populated part of the game. But for sure, without doubt, he is the best horse.
And you've got this horse for the Warrens, who are predominantly, I know them at least, having a lot of horses on the East Coast. They've had horses with Todd, with Kieran, I know Chad as well. How did it come about that this one was sent your way out in California?
I actually just got a kind of a phone call from him one day. He had mentioned he was interested in having a horse back on the West Coast. They summer out there in La Jolla, California. Of course, the Warrens campaign St. Liam to a horse of the year campaign. So to be able to come here with a horse like that, a horse of this magnitude for them, to take them, center stage is very fulfilling.
We've got a couple videos of City of Light. He won the Malibu, and that really put him on the scene, beating straight 3-year-olds. But we're going to show the Triple Bend, where I think maybe he really announced his presence. I mean, he was 7-1 in the Malibu, so it wasn't certainly a shocker. But it's kind of in racing. It's what have you done for me lately, or prove it. And I think as we look at the Triple Bend here, certainly he did that. Now stepping up and beating older horses too.
Yeah. In the Triple Bend, he showed a little bit of a different dimension. Drawn down inside the day of the Malibu, we had to go right from the gate. He was able to go ahead and lay off of a horse, lay off of Bobby Abu Dhabi here that day, and was a hard-fought victory to the wire. Of course, we had to kind of reroute a little bit. Our original plan was to go to the Southwest. Inclement weather kept us home. We had to wait another 3 weeks, and it's not easy to keep a horse at the top of his game for an extra few weeks, especially when you're trying to get him to peak at the right time. But as you can see here, the way he galloped out that day, very impressive, and couldn't have been happier with him.
And then that got you, I was talking to you off the air, I was fortunate enough to be at Oaklawn Park when you shipped him there to the Oaklawn Handicap, trying 2 turns for the first time. I'm sure it was, you always think your horse can handle it, but I'm sure maybe a little trepidation. And then, oh, by the way, you meet Accelerate, who I think now it's clear that he's the best older handicap horse in the country after sweeping the 3 big races in California. We're going to show the Oaklawn Handicap. He settled even more that day than normal. And I remember looking over at my friend in the grandstand. I said, wow, this is one hell of a horse right here.
Yeah, this was fantastic. He broke okay that day, drawn out in the 11 hole, up to Drayden to go ahead and make himself a trip here. Horse put him exactly where he needed to be. Was probably a little touch wider than we would have liked to have been in the first turn. Relaxed nicely up the backside. When Drayden called on him coming to the 3/8 pole, he took his cue. And when he leveled off, it was exceptional here.
Yeah. You went on to the Gold Cup at the old Hollywood Gold Cup, now at Santa Anita, of course, 1.25 miles. I thought on the far turn you kind of looked 2 to 5, and then is it just as easy to say didn't handle the trip or what? I mean, 1.25 miles. Obviously, you're kind of supposed to go to that race after you win it 9 furlongs. And is a Breeders' Cup Classic in play? Is it just the knee-jerk reaction he didn't handle it, or was there anything more there?
I was so convinced that he'd get 1.25 miles. He relaxed so nicely that day at Oaklawn Park. His training after that was as it had always been.
Yeah.
He's a very, trains phenomenally all the time. So I just thought to myself, you know what? If I can go ahead and attack this now and try and see if he can get 1.25 miles, this makes my summer a lot easier. I thought he ran a very respectable third that day. Got to the leaders very easily at the 3/8 pole. Kind of put in a little run from the 3/8 pole to the quarter pole and leveled out through the lane. I thought the track might have been a little bit different, been playing a little bit differently that day. It seemed like it was a little deeper here earlier in the spring, but can he get a mile and a quarter? I'm sure he probably can.
Okay.
We'll worry about that down the road sometime.
Yeah, and I'm going to ask you that in a second. But first, the Whitney was on the radar, and then you were forced to miss it a little bit with kind of a nagging foot issue. And it's going to bring me to my next question. I always look at these. You're based in California, and we as East Coast guys and handicappers and fans, this horse, I'm looking at his page now, is just working off the page. And I want you to talk A, about his works, but B, about the mindset in California in the morning. Is it a lot? I know Todd works his horses fast. It's a lot different over here than it is over there when going 58 and change is maybe not that big of a deal. Your horse certainly looks like he's working up a storm.
He's a phenomenal workhorse, always has been. He actually worked 58 and change before he ever ran. I certainly wasn't expecting it. He likes to go ahead and showcase his ability from time to time in the morning. California is a little bit different in the regard that we run from flag fall to that's all, as they say. So he has been sort of trained like that.
Right.
And I think you'll see more of that today. Although, having said that, he's a horse that can go ahead and prompt the pace.
Yeah.
He's also kind enough to go ahead and sit right off of it. Wonderfully drawn out in the 8-hole today, so I think that gives Irad a lot of options.
The draw has to be perfect for you. I mean, as you mentioned, it's an outside attack post. I'm sure you've looked at this race. And just as from a handicapping perspective, when I looked at it, I just felt it was odd that a 7 furlong Grade 1 at Saratoga, there really is not a lot of speed.
There's not a lot
there.
of speed. Not a lot of speed. That being said, everybody shows up in the paddock and 6 guys will say the same thing.
Right.
Hey, there's not a lot of speed in here. If nobody wants to go, you go. What ends up happening? 3 guys decide to go. Now you've got a 3-horse spread across the front, and it sets it up for someone to get hit by the deck. So, as I said, I've got the leading rider.
Yeah.
I couldn't be happier to have him.
Do you give him any instructions? Or, I mean, like you said, he has not ridden this horse in the past. Is there, as a trainer, getting a guy that's really never been on your horse, is there a tutorial there? Or you give him, listen, Irad, he's a little funky or a little quirky?
I'll give him a couple of little suggestions. He's at the top of his game for a reason. Irad is. We have a relationship from when I worked for Todd. I have the utmost respect for him, for his agent, and for his brother. I think what they have done collectively is fantastic. So we'll give him a couple of pointers, and we're responsible for the effort, not the outcome.
Right.
So,
you mentioned that at the end of the day, you think he can get a mile and a quarter, but you said that's for down the road. But this race, it's a win and you're in for the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. But being that it's at Churchill Downs, that's a 1-turn mile. As you know, and there's a big difference between a 1-turn mile and a mile and a quarter at Churchill Downs. Does this race actually do anything to determine that path? Because obviously, I would think you're going to run again somewhere, be it the Awesome Again or wherever it is. Do you get anything out of this race that says to you, okay, now I'm going here?
We'll see what happens today. This horse runs awfully well fresh. Churchill Downs, I think, is going to be a racetrack to his liking. It's a much tighter surface. I think we got that day at Oaklawn Park, and you saw what he did there. So today will be a little bit of a guiding light for us. If we need to come back in the Awesome Again, we may do so. If we have to train up to to one of the Breeders' Cup races, we're very comfortable doing that as well.
And I think in this day and age, that's almost the rule as opposed to the exception now. Timing, spacing, getting your best, like you bring a fresh horse in here today that, again, as I mentioned and you kind of alluded to, training lights out, save your best for the big ones.
I think there's so much information out there. You guys are privy to, obviously the form, all kinds of handicapping sheets, Bragas and Thorograph, those type of things. People, I think, get almost mesmerized by what they say. But a lot of times you got to pay attention to your horse from where I'm coming from. So I've listened to him. Hopefully he's listened to us, and we put it all together today.
16 years later, you're back at Saratoga with, one of the stars of the undercard, you ever kind of look back and like the circuitous route you took here and where you are today?
I have. It's was a wonderful time in my life. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. Well, Mike, I really appreciate you taking the time. Like I said, I know it's a busy day.
Always fun to talk to our friends at the Times-Union. Tim Wilkins came in. We have to say it was a long season with the face-to-face matchup handicapping against the Times-Union guys. They got us by a smidge the last weekend. We caught up with Tim probably about the middle of the meet. Top of the show. Happy to be joined now by Tim Wilkins from the Times-Union. As always, OTB versus the TU in the newspaper every day, and Tim and Anthony Stabile have their bankroll day in and day out. Always fun to follow horse racing via the Times-Union, and nobody working harder day in and day out than Tim Wilkins. Tim, thanks for stopping by.
Thanks, Seth. Thanks for the nice words. Before we even get started, though, I have to ask you a big question.
Go ahead.
It's been on the lips of everyone on this backstretch this morning, from the jockey trainer softball game tonight. How much run did you get, and how did you do?
I did not touch the ball last night. I was in for about 45 seconds, and Neto was saying earlier I should have left with the high note last year when I scored a basket, but last night I didn't. And I said, Mitch Levitas, as they did the team lineups, he made a comment about me and a walker. So I think that scared the coaches away, Pletcher and McLaughlin. I think they put me in for about 45 seconds in the first half and didn't get in the second half.
Well, this is your walk boy. You can walk to another team. The heck with Pletcher and McLaughlin if they're not going to play you.
Yeah, I'm looking for the next charity basketball. I'll move from the Globetrotters to the Wizards. Yeah.
Go. I hear Guillaume's going to start a team with the Louisiana All-Stars.
I would work right into that team because you had the gumbo back here a couple of years ago.
And that's coming again.
Going to do it again.
Yes, it is.
So I'd just like to go to the team lunches with Guillaume.
But it was a good cause, that jockey basketball
Chaplaincy,
game.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it was going to benefit the Hurricane Relief Fund in Puerto Rico, as well as giving money for the backstretch kids for backpacks, kids going back to school. It's a good cause. I hope they made a lot of money.
Yeah, they had a nice crowd there, as they always do, and it was a lot of fun. It's amazing, the jockeys. Manny Franco, Mitch said, was the MVP, made some three-pointer. They romped us by about 30 points. The Ortiz brothers play well. And
Well, they take it serious.
Yeah,
I mean, I remember a couple years ago, and they had put a portable hoop back in the jocks room, and they were practicing between races. It was like
there was a fast break where Irod came down and did a behind the back and nailed the guy who was getting it. The guy unfortunately missed the layup, but it was like, man,
Sports Center highlight.
They must be practicing.
Well, I know that Jose and Irad played a lot in their youth. Growing up, they played baseball too before they got their real calling, which was horse racing. But they're both pretty good athletes.
Yeah, they clearly
really are.
They clearly have played before, as have some of the other jockeys as well. It was fun night, and as I say, good crowd for a good cause. All right, let's talk again, little TU versus the OTB. You know what the record is right now?
I believe you guys have 4 or maybe 5. I think it's 5-3-4, maybe.
Yeah, we had a bunch of ties.
I think it's 5-3-4. You guys are up. But you guys started out really well.
Yeah, which you and I were talking a few days ago, 2 or 3 years ago, we had that big lead.
You guys were by like 17.
Yeah, and then you guys came right down to the last day, which was great. It was fun.
But you guys got the whole crew out of
I know, we're throwing them all at you this year.
I think you had 5 handicappers.
Yeah.
And then Signor John, he just does it on Fridays, right?
Yeah, and I'm pretty much Sundays for most of the meet, and then Sully and Mike also in the mix, and Brian as well. And on the TU side, it's you and the Big A.
The Big A, Anthony Stabile, who he's new to this fray. He doesn't know of the intense competition. I mean, I've heard that John Signor has had meetings with you guys, saying that if you don't win this year, there's going to be changes made. But it's a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun.
And people come up and talk to me and say,
Yeah,
and they follow it. They follow
Yeah.
it. It's it's just another thing that we all love Saratoga, and it's just another thing that they get to follow.
Yeah, it's fun.
Good. It's good.
We also have that charity bet in there in the TU every day, and that's
You guys
been
are doing
fun.
pretty
And
good with that, aren't you?
Yeah, I think Mike Callahan sent out something yesterday, I think it was, where we had already raised $800 for the charities
That's
with
great.
the bets. And I got to catch up. My couple of charity bets have kind of languished a little bit, and we'll see if I can move it on. But again, highly recommended to pick up the TU every day for those selections. You and Anthony with the bankroll and the charity bet also. But I want to mention, before we mention, I was going to mention your article, so I'll get to that in a second. I want to go back, though, just because we talked about it really the first day of the meet. And I want to thank you for participating in the tribute we did to Matt Graves and Mike Jarbo. Of course, passed away since the meet last year. Longtime TU employees. They both did some handicapping for Capital OTB, so we did the little tribute video. You participated in that. A lot of good feedback to that. But again, we miss Matt and Mike.
It was a lot of fun to do that, remembering the stories of, two guys that were really close friends with me, and, they were, synonymous with Saratoga, and, that's it's different up in the press box without him, especially Jarbo, who was there every day. Matt would be there, periodically, but even last year he was up there every Saturday helping me out, and it's just not as the same without him. But it was nice that Pedro, the press box chef, renamed the hot dog machine in Jarbo's name. That's sort of an inside joke because Jarbo ate more hot dogs up there than the Ghost and Ghostbusters did.
He enjoyed the meal plan up there. So.
Oh God, he didn't spend a dime on food outside of this place for the 6 weeks of Saratoga.
And again, miss both Mike and Matt. As I say, the tribute, which we have on the Capital OTV YouTube page as well. If you follow those guys at all, certainly check that out. All right, let's get to some of the things you've written over the past few weeks as we've gotten into the meet. First, one of the things you kicked the meet right off with was a profile of the Ortiz brothers, and I'll get your take on it. Irod's riding well. Jose has gotten off to a slow start.
Very slow start, and I'm kind of surprised at that.
Yeah.
Because his, I thought he was coming into this meet loaded for bear with the outfits he rode for, and it's not like he's forgotten how to ride. I think that he's had some tough beats. He's also had some horses that haven't run for him.
Yeah.
It's still a long ways to go. I mean, I think he's got 6 winners now. I wouldn't throw him out yet. But
no, I my prediction is there'll be an afternoon where he has 4 or 5 and then he's off and running.
I mean, because right now, you look at Javi and Luis Saez, who are having off to great starts. Santana. I mean, there was the stretch where Rafael was winning, I think, 3 or 4 days in a row. He won the first race every day.
Yeah.
Not including the steeplechase, because that was, but he won the second race, so I include that as the first thoroughbred race of the day. He's off to a great start. He's, but the riding colony, it just goes to show you, Seth, how good it is. I mean, it's not like it's just a couple guys and then it drops off. All of these guys in that room can ride. Yeah. And we've seen that already at this meet.
Checking out some of the other articles you've written just recently. This one was kind of interesting. You had the Ken and Sarah Ramsey profile, the porch in their backyard where they overlooked the training track, and that was kind of interesting.
Ken Ramsey is just, I think, a delight to be around. He's 82,
loves the game.
82 years old, still has the enthusiasm of a 20-year-old. He bought the house on Fifth Avenue off of Jack Knowlton, the Funny Side fame, a couple years back, and as you can see in the photo, they're right on the Oklahoma on the horse path, and they go out there he and his wife Sarah go out there every morning, watch the horses, and Ken will strike up, the way Ken is, he'll strike up conversations with every trainer that goes by, and he just says, and that's why he named the horse Backyard Heaven, because that's his backyard heaven, and that's just a neat story, because Ken Ramsey is a good guy for racing, and I think that and his wife, and she's had her health problems, but she's up there whenever he's at the track, he's with her, she's with him, and they're just they're very nice people, and you wish them all the best.
Yeah, and he certainly likes to win. He likes to play the game, and it's fun to kind of see. Goes out and has breakfast in the morning and watches the horses work out over at Oklahoma. Also wanted to touch on, because one of the characters in the game, Eric Guillot, and he has one of the horses who's kind of become a darling of social media. That Southern Phantom with the all-white face has really attracted a nice fan base. Ran earlier in the meet. Didn't get it done, but Eric said afterwards he liked the performance, and he's looking for a bounce back. He said to me the other day, I saw Guillot, he said, have me on. He's expecting the horse to run a week from tomorrow and run back. He said, have me on. I'll make you famous with this horse. So again, Eric Guillot, but he was out, you said, as you were buzzing around this morning, he was out on the track this morning.
Yeah, is that my video?
Yeah, from Twitter.
Okay. Yeah, he was out this morning, and he brings a buzz wherever he goes, just because of his look. And he's so friendly, and because when he was born, he was around. People were around him 24/7 all the time, and he just naturally, he's like a dog. People gravitate towards him, and you know, the first race that he had, when he walked out of the gate, there was 2 horses I think that bumped, and he just kind of looked at them. So he walked out of the gate and he spotted the field
Yeah.
5-6 lengths, and he finished really well, which gave Guillaume a lot of confidence for his next start. I mean, I think that it would be a very popular victory if he were to get it. And I think he can, you know, we haven't seen the field yet, obviously, but I mean, I think he's going to run back a lot better. And I think he could be in the mix, and who knows, maybe he might even win. I mean, it would be great. It would be great if he did,
Yeah.
because I think that, you know, the weekend, this next weekend is the so-called slow weekend. I mean, the 4-star day is still a
Yeah,
grade
yeah.
1, but you know, he'll spice it up for sure.
Yeah, no question. Yeah, no question about it. Guillaume, always a character. So
You better have your
get-
5-second tape delay on when he's on.
you get a good series of quotes in the winner's circle if that one does show up. I just want to ask you, because as I say, one of the hardest working guys in the press box. I leave late a lot of days, and you're always in there after me. So you're working late, and I see you're on the card again this morning with our buddy Anthony Affronti, buzzing around the backstretch. Give us a typical TU day working on the racetrack here.
Well, I get up here 8:15, 8:30, and I'm here till 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
I mean, I do the interviews in the morning, go out and see anyone that I need to see. Then you got to go upstairs and you got to write your stories. You got to handicap the races. You do all the social media stuff, videos you have to do now. I mean, it's a nonstop thing. You know the deal.
Yeah.
It's not like it used to be where 10 minutes after the last race you're walking out the door. I mean, God, there's been sometimes I've been there till 10 o'clock at night, and I'm walking out and saying, what, am I crazy? I'm thinking Matt and Jarbo, the ghosts of them are up there watching me. I mean, it's just, but, you know, there's no other place like it, and you can, you know, if you want to get into this business, you know you're going to have to work long hours. It's not, I always get a kick out of the people in their offices that say, oh, you're up at Saratoga for 6-7 weeks. Must be a lot of fun. And it's fun being here, but it's a lot of work, as you well know, if you want to do it right.
How do you decide where you're going to go in the morning? Because you are out here. I see you buzz by our set often in the mornings as well. So how do you decide whose barns you're going to visit in the morning?
Well, there's some guys you try to go see almost every day, like a Chad Brown, maybe Todd. But then you also look at you know, the stakes race for the weekend. There was a lot of Whitney visits this week. You know, going to see Rick Violet and Chad Summers with the 2 New York breds, and you know, I went over to see Ian Wilkes like every day, but he was never there. He was in Kentucky, and I had to get him on the phone. And he's got McCracken running in the Whitney, and it's just you just go by feel, and sometimes you just run into people and you start talking to them. Like I went over and talked to Linda Rice yesterday about Voodoo Song. I don't know if
Yeah, I think we have a replay of the Forbidden Apple with Voodoo Song. This was a big performance back on the 14th of July. Entered this weekend, but I think Linda's looking at maybe the Grade 1 coming up as well with the
She
Voodoo
is.
Song.
I mean, remember Voodoo Song last year?
Last
won
year, cool
4
story,
times.
yeah.
4 times at Saratoga, which is unheard of. And Linda was saying, you know, she's done a lot of things up at Saratoga. You know, she was the first female to win a training title here. There was one race when I think she was the superfecta in a grass race a couple years back. But she puts this accomplishment right up there with it. But, you know, she was going to run in the Lure, the last race on the Whitney card, but with the turf course being so soft, she says that he needs it firm, so they're going to wait for maybe the 4-star Dave, maybe the West Point, probably the 4-star Dave. Hopefully get a harder course. But the way the weather has been, I don't know if it'll even be like that next week. Even though I think we're supposed to get a break next week. But you know, it was a cool story that the horse won 4 times, and you know we won't see him run 4 times this year, maybe twice, but. I think the 4-star Dave, and that's an ambitious spot.
Grade 1.
Ambitious spot, but obviously the horse likes it here. So, you know, it's there's always that old angle, the horse for the course, and you know that's certainly one that fits that.
Yeah. And it will be fun to see wherever they choose to run with the horse because of that. There was a great story last year with the 4 wins. That's
Sure.
something you certainly don't see very often with a horse like
No.
that. Let's talk a little bit about Whitney tomorrow. And during the handicappers report earlier, I said we would have this replay of the Golden Shaheen earlier this year. As we pick it up around the far turn, sitting last will be Mind Your Biscuits. And as the camera pans, he'll only be in the shot for a second as they hit the stretch, and you'll see him kind of tilt out. In fact, we picked it up later, so he's not even in the shot right now. You'll see him show up at no point here do you think he's going to win the race?
No.
Even when he comes into the picture, you
No.
don't think he's going to win the race. He gets up in what is one of the most incredible performances, certainly of the year, but probably the last 20 years, just gets up in this international race, New York bred, a Group 1 internationally in Dubai. Followed that up with the Ding Dong battle with B Jersey down in the Met Mile, and what was one of the better races of the year as well. He adds intrigue tomorrow in the Whitney, and then of course Diversify, who was huge in that wire-to-wire Suburban win. They're the two storylines, but it's a fun field tomorrow. What are your thoughts on the Whitney?
It is a fun field, Seth, and you know, Biscuits won that Shaheen 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
And you know, you could say arguably that beat he had in the Met Mile was one of the better
absolutely.
efforts
Yeah.
in defeat that you're going to see all year.
Yeah.
I mean, he comes from way out. Although when I was talking to Chad Summers, he's not saying that for sure that this horse will be far back. He said he might be closer to the lead. I don't know what they're going to do with. Well, we know what Diversify is going to do. He's going to be on the lead with Dalmar. I think that he'll keep him company. But also Rick Violet says that if Dalmar wants to go, he says good luck to him. We might sit off of him. So I think it's going to set up for the two New York breds to run big races. But, you know, you also got a Belmont winner in there. You got, Backyard Heaven. I don't know what to make of him after that debacle in Churchill.
There was the heat factor.
There was the heat
that
factor.
night.
It was 91,
Yeah.
even though he didn't show it, you know. But, you know, a lot of people don't show the sweats. But, the humidity was the thing,
Yeah.
too. And he had no excuse when he came into the stretch. He looked like he was going to go right by and win. But, you know, I think, you know, knowing Chad Brown, he's going to have him cranked up, ready to run. I think that, you know, you got to put him in the mix. But I think right now, I haven't done the whole handicapping thing right now. I think I'm going to put Biscuits on top because I just think he's a top solid horse. And I know it's the first time he's going around 2 turns, first time he's gone this distance. But in the Met Mile, it looked like he wanted to go further.
Yeah.
And I think that he's definitely a major player.
Yeah, I think with Diversify and Mind Your Biscuits and Backyard Heaven, and as you say, and some others in there that make it interesting, I think it's a really fun edition of the Whitney. Just before we let you go, let's get some thoughts on Travers. Certainly, we had the big 3-year-old races this weekend, the Curlin and Tenfold, Good Magic in the Haskell, Hofburg in the Curlin, Tenfold in the Jim Dandy. Obviously Justify at the top of the class, but he's done, retired, and so now we're trying to sort things out underneath, as you wrote in a Times Union article. Shaping up to be an interesting field in the Travers.
It is. I mean, obviously Justify would have been the cream on top of the cherry on top of the cream if you would go that far, but obviously we're not going to get him. Good Magic, I would think, is now the leader of the active 3-year-olds. But if he runs the race he did in the Haskell, even though he didn't beat a lot in the Haskell, save for Bravazzo maybe, I mean, he is definitely the horse to beat. Wonder Godot, the filly coming in, she chipped in here Monday from Canada.
You had a nice shot, too, and I pulled it off your Twitter feed of her walking through the state, and all the other horses are saying, hey, who's that?
Yeah, right. But what is this? And she might be the biggest horse in the field. Maybe Gronkowski will give her a run, but for the money for that. But you know, Wonder Godot is going to be the sentimental favorite for every, especially female fan that is here. I'd be shocked if there aren't Wonder Woman outfits there because she's, you know, the horse is named for Gal Gadot, who's the Wonder Woman actress. And Mark Casse told me he's starting to make buttons up for, you know, the horse in a Wonder Woman outfit, sort of, that he wants to give out to people when they're around the barn. And then, you know, the other Casse horse, Flame Away, who was second in the Jim Day, will not run in the Travers. Yeah. And he says, John Oxley, the owner, is not doing it because the other filly. He says that, I mean, I don't know if I believe that, but I guess Flame Away could show up in the Jerkins or the Smarty Jones down at Parks on the same day as the Travers. But they said they want to get more confidence into that horse, even though the Jerkins is going to be a tough field. I mean, you're going to have Promises Fulfilled coming back into that one. But, you know, the Travers is the Travers. Bravazzo, Gronkowski, Chad's training that horse up to that race. And that horse is a monster. I mean, he surprised everybody when he was second in the Belmont.
Yeah.
I mean, could he do it again? Could he possibly do this?
I had talked to Chad the day before, and I don't think Chad was even that confident he was going to get that kind of performance.
He just came into his barn, and you know, Chad does a great job with every horse that comes into his barn. Let's face it. And Gronkowski certainly surprised me. I mean, I would have had the Super with that if not for that. But you know, I think Gronkowski has to be in the mix, and you know, Hofberg, he didn't beat anything in the curling, but he looked good doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's and a lot of people have been on his bandwagon ever
Still
since.
lightly raced.
Still lightly raced, but they've been on his bandwagon ever since that Florida Derby.
Yeah.
And you know, he's third in the Belmont. He had that trouble trip in the Derby. I mean, he could put it all together. But Good Magic, I think, is the horse everyone's going to have to be.
Absolutely. And again, it's going to be a fun Travers coming up towards the end of the meet. You previewed it already a little early in the Times Union, as we say. Some of the other stories we touched on, the Ramsey story is fairly recent. The shot we had, the video we had, were from your Twitter feed, and obviously with you bouncing around the backstretch, recommended that people follow that as well. But pick up a Times Union on a daily basis, and you can watch the TU Capital OTB face-off on the selections page as well. Tim, appreciate the visit.
Seth, thank you. It's always a good to visit with you, and you do a great job.
Appreciate that. Tim Wilkin from the Times Union. Thanks to our buddy Tim Wilkins for stopping by. Appreciated talking to him. Up next, trainer Ian Wilkes. He visited Brian on the Saturday morning show.
Welcome back to Saturdays at the Spa. Brian Nadeau with you on 4-Star Dave Day. As I mentioned, Arlington Million Day as well. My first guest here a little later after the 4-Star Dave, about 6:20 in the p.m. Hopefully on what we think is going to be a good turf course. I don't think the rain is has come down today. I bring in Ian Wilkes. Ian, thanks for joining us. I appreciate it. I'd like to think you've got one of the ones in here, Mr. Cub. I don't want to call it the second division because I think a lot of these horses could have went in the 4-Star Dave, but the fact that the lure was washed off and brought back today, and I think you fit nicely in here.
Yeah, the horse is doing, I'll be honest with you, actually probably suits me to come back a week later. I actually think the horse is doing really good.
Extra week's going to help?
Yeah, this week helped.
I think he's come a long way. I mean, you look at his form, and you know, he won as a 2-year-old, and then kind of middling form as a 3-year-old, and then towards the end of last year, did the light bulb go on, or just maybe maturity? What got him going pretty good?
I ran him a mile and a half in Gulfstream. He didn't like that, so he picked up his form. No, he ever since I ran him in that race, he just turned the corner. You know, I don't know why. Just maybe he didn't want to run that far again. You know, so he said, "I'll run harder for me."
Getting a horse to go a mile and a half, is it as much a guessing game? You got to put them out there, see if they can do it. I mean, obviously the dirt horses are going to run it once in their life. A little more common on the turf, but not something you see all too often.
Yeah, no, that's true. You know, and he's got tactical speed. This horse, he puts himself wherever he's comfortable. If someone goes, he can sit behind them. You know, he's very versatile.
So we got out at Gulfstream this winter. You gave him a little freshener, comes back, wins an allowance at Keeneland, and then you put him back in stakes. We're going to bring up footage of the opening verse here where he stalked the pace and pulled clear late, and what, you know, at least if you look at it on paper, probably a breakthrough performance. We're going to bring it up now, the opening verse. Here he is here stalking. I mean, today I thought we'll talk about it in a second, but he's a lot of versatility here too.
Yeah, they went quick that day. 2 of them set up perfect. Couldn't ask for a better race. The way it's set up, and Chris knows the horse, trusts the horse well, and gets a good rapport with him. So and that's why I wanted Chris to come back and ride him today. And that day they went 46 for the half, 46 and 3, and he's just always traveling. And I was just pleased the way that he sat. He didn't have to have the lead, or he didn't have to be, anywhere. He can. Right. He can be. Doesn't matter on the pace. He can adapt to it.
So he's going to pull clear here in a second, and that brings you into the Wise Dan, and kind of an old rival. Mr. Understood gets you again. He's gotten you 3 times, right, for Brad Cox, and I would think we're going to show the footage of the Wise Dan. You found yourself on the lead that day, but as you said, they went really quick at Churchill. So we'll bring up the Wise Dan in a second, where you're on the lead. And
this day we went a little slower, 48. There was no pace, so we end up here. And right here, I actually kicked on Mr. Understood, and I opened up, and I thought I was going to hold him off. But he's a good horse. He's a hard-knocking horse, Mr. Understood. And right here, I still thought I had him, but, we just sort of flattened a little bit on our run there.
And that's Inspector Lindley on the inside, too, where you're back against here. But I mean, you lost nothing in defeat that day, and I know that's a grade 2 at Churchill Downs. I said on the handicappers report before to Anthony Mormino, this is a tougher race? I mean, they're not giving anything away here, even though it's just a listed stakes.
Yeah, it is tough. You come to Saratoga, it's not easy.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what race you're running. Yeah.
We mentioned pace. I think you're in a good spot just from a handicapping perspective today. I don't see a lot of pace.
Yeah.
You've mentioned Chris knows his horse very well. Played off the break, or are you going, or play the break?
Play
Okay.
the break. You know, if someone really wants to go, you've
Right.
seen there, we can sit off of him.
Right.
You know, if no one goes, we're quite happy to go to the lead too. You know, so I'll leave it to Chris.
Sure.
You know, give him a leg up and just let him ride his race here.
Is this an important race in that it tells you where to go forward from here? I mean, I mentioned these are horses that, you know, with a good fall are certainly not out of the mix of the Breeders' Cup Mile. You're based at Churchill Downs. I mean, does this point you in what kind of direction? Obviously, you've got the Woodbine Mile, the Maker's Mark at Keeneland. I mean, races, they have to be at least on your radar with a horse that has form like this.
Well, definitely. The next race, he'll go to Kentucky Downs, the Tourist. That's been on our radar. The money's great, 750,000. He's a gelding, so we'll go there, and then you always after that you got Keeneland,
right?
You know, and if he can, as I talked to Rusty Jones who owns him, you know, if he runs good at Keeneland, then we can look at
opens up a lot of doors.
Up a lot of doors,
and he's a winner, as I mentioned, over that Keeneland turf course.
Because I even toyed with the idea of running him in the 4-star Dave up here. And I thought, just not quite ready for them horses. I'd like to one more race and. But this is no easy spot.
No, not at all. But I mean, I would think his confidence is at an all-time high off his last 3
Yeah,
years.
he's just getting better. He's just maturing. I think you'll see better next year too.
Right. Yeah, and you mentioned too, he's a gelding, so it allows you to take a little more time with him, I would think, and be a little more judicious with him. You're not in a rush to go off to the breeding shed, or I have to be in this race because it's a grade 1, that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. You know, we're running, the owner's having fun with him. He's making money for him, and that's the key. And then we'll be able to, at the end of the year, give him a break, turn him out, give him a break, bring him back, and plan on next year.
Yeah, we're talking a 4-year-old here in August with just 13 lifetime starts, so you would think the best is still ahead of him.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And earlier in the meet, we talked off the air, maybe a pleasant surprise. I think he was 4-1 or so, but we're going to bring up the footage of Big Dollar Bill upsetting the mile in 5/8, I believe, stakes earlier in the meet. The Birdstone, in a strong, I mean, it looks like he was 1-5 here on the far turn. Getting the stakes up at Saratoga had to be pretty nice.
Yeah, that was good. I was so happy for Dennis Farkas. This is Dennis's first stakes win as an owner, first win at Saratoga, so that was great. I've been, a long-range plan has always wanted to run him in this race, in 1.5 miles on the dirt, because he's got a great turn of foot, and he just runs all day, so it was a good chance to give him a shot at it, and I think he can only get better off of this.
And goes to the cuts back, correct? In the 1.5 green. How many times a year can you say that? You said you were eyeing the Greenwood Cup at Parks, the 1.5. All systems go for that?
Yeah, all systems go. He's come out of it good. Horse is doing well. And if everything goes right, we'll plan on that.
Good, good. You mentioned you had 20 up here. You're down to 15 or so.
Yeah.
Anyone you're looking forward to? Any 2-year-olds or anything?
I only bought a few 2-year-olds up here this year. Had a lot of problems last year. You know, my 2-year-olds really fell apart up here. You know, so I kept them mainly in Kentucky, and then I've shipped a few up. I've got one that's finally going to run on Monday. Get my days correct here. Monday, a point of entry colt for Mary Lou Whitney. Nice colt. You know, he's done well. His mind's still out in left field a little bit, but he's got some talent.
You're a patient guy. Obviously, it's a good time to just get these horses going.
Yeah.
And you're a guy that typically your horses do better with age, more distance. So I would think we'll see you maybe fire in that little Churchill meet, and then certainly in the fall.
Oh, definitely. You know, Keeneland, Churchill, but you always want to run very respectable here because of for Mary Lou.
I was going to say that was before I let you go. Training for Mary Lou Whitney. It's got to be pretty cool.
That's cool.
How did that come about?
That's a good question. It's been a little while
now.
While, right? Yeah. I think Kim Nelson, who worked for Mary Lou,
Yeah.
and John Henriksen. At the time, she was the secretary running the office, and we go back a long way. And I think, I just brought my name up
Right.
and met with John, and that was great. I think it's been a really good relationship since.
Yeah, and you had the name escapes me, but the good miler, one turn kind
Birdsong.
of horse, Birdsong.
Yeah,
So-
standing a stud now at Gainesway.
Nice. So yeah,
that's
did
good.
some good work. Ian, I appreciate you taking. I know it's a busy weekend around here and taking some time.
Our friends Maggie Wolfendale and Tom Morley stopped by. It was a few days after Tom won a Grade 1 out on Arlington Million Day. We talked to Tom and Maggie. That's up next. Welcome back to Racing Across America on this Friday morning. Happy to be joined this morning by Maggie Wolfendale and Tom Morley, the New York Racing Association couple, the racing couple, as it were. Good morning.
I guess you can refer
Morning,
to me.
sir.
I always feel bad when you refer to me as Wolfendale when I'm next to Tom.
I was actually thinking that last night, and I guess that's like a TV thing. If you've been in TV and people are familiar with the name, that happens a lot, that you just stick with it while you're on TV.
Yeah, it's exactly it.
Yeah.
So.
But we all get the situation. I will also toss in talking about the family. I saw you guys at the TRF fundraiser right towards the beginning of the meet, the spaghetti dinner, and your daughter Grace was toddling around. Super cute.
Thank you. Yeah, she is. She loves the horses. It's great. It's great to have her back at the barn. She has her own little pony as well, who unfortunately isn't up here, but nudge, nudge.
Yeah, but
He
there's
won't
no
let me.
stall space for her. I'm afraid.
I actually pulled up there, and I pulled up the
Yeah, isn't
Twitter
that a great
picture, and I was going to
picture?
ask you how she takes to the horses, but I think the picture says it all.
Yeah, it does. And it's amazing how horses just know to be gentle. I mean, my dad's horses and I was growing up were the same way with me. You know, these big strapping colts that, want to bully everybody around. Once they have a little child in their presence, just become little teddy bears.
Yeah, the picture is very sweet, and as they
Yeah.
say, super cute, so congratulations. All right, let's jump right into it, because I want to go back to last weekend, and we're going to pull up the replay of the Secretariat Grade 1 event. Carrick goes out to Chicago in career start number 4, wins the Grade 1 Secretariat, certainly one of the more prestigious races for that subdivision of 3-year-olds on the turf, which year in and year out I love. Analyzed it, Catholic Boys, certainly the names, but boy, in this being only career start number 4, Carrick has certainly kind of stamped himself as a player in that subdivision. Talk a little bit about this race and what you were expecting going in and what you felt like when it played out.
Yeah, it was a tough one to gauge, Seth, because we had such a rough trip down at Delaware. Nothing went right for him that day. But once Johnny had adjusted the way the race set up down there, then he, his final comment to us was, "Listen, this is a really, really talented colt," and that gave us the confidence that although we'd lost at Delaware, to kick on down to Chicago. And honestly, when they're this age and they mature as fast as he is, then they can almost get in front of you in terms of understanding their ability. And I've obviously been asked a lot about why we started him for 40. But at that stage in his career, that was the level of ability that he was showing. But that was on the dirt as well. And we could have gone to Monmouth or somewhere and tried to win a maiden special weight, but we rolled the dice and took the chance, tried to buy ourselves the starter 50 condition. But honestly, after that first race, he started to show a completely different side to him. He was much more aggressive in his works. He was finishing better. He was galloping out better. And he's a very, very big horse. And since May to August, he has done nothing but physically improve. He's probably put on about 100 pounds of muscle, and he's quite a sight to behold. I did text Jerry yesterday after his first day back at the track and said, I'm not sure that he hasn't put weight on going to Arlington, let alone not lost any. So, when they're doing what he's doing, they're very exciting to be around.
Go back to that debut effort for Maiden 40 down at Belmont and wins off by daylight 4.5 lengths. So for folks who aren't familiar with the process, they come back to be unsaddled if they're going to get claimed that the tag gets stuck on. So when you see no tag, you're like, "Ew,
yeah,
ooh,
yeah,
that's a bullet." Particularly given what he did.
On paper, that race came up basically like a maiden special weight, and we were 15-1 morning line, and we went off 15-1. He did open a lot shorter, but so somebody obviously had a little bit of money on him early. But at the same time, it was a race where there were a lot of other claim options out of. I would have been amazed if someone had taken him. I think they took 4 claims out of the race. And so actually I felt a little bit more settled when I saw the race on paper, and I thought, you know what, they're not going to be having a look at us in here. So, you know, every now and again you have to play a little bit of poker, especially in New York. It's hard to win in New York. You know, maiden special weight at Belmont Park, you basically better be an overnight state caliber horse to win that. So we rolled the dice, we got lucky, but then ever since then he has started to show a different level of talent.
And I have to. Did you go to Chicago?
I did not go
So
to
you were
Chicago.
here, and you were doing TV. So I'm curious because the timing. It seemed like you were probably had a free moment. Did you guys watch together? Where did you watch? And
We never watch races together.
that's interesting.
Never.
We haven't watched races together for a very long time. They never go well when we do, so we don't do it anymore.
interesting.
But actually, the reason I didn't go, Seth, was because of the New York bred sale. We had 10 horses past the vet that night that we had to bid on. And my work was done. Michelle, my assistant, does an absolutely fantastic job. She flew down there on the Tuesday with him. Big thank you to Chris Davis and to Sophie Doyle. He shipped into Chris's barn. Sophie and Chris rode him while he was down there. Chris rang me 2 days beforehand and said, "Tom, this thing is a beast." And so, you know, I knew he'd ship well at that juncture. And it was just a case of how good a trip he was going to get was really important.
And I think Johnny, having ridden him in the Kent, actually understood, and you could
Sure.
tell as soon as they broke in the Secretariat that he knew what to do with him this time around.
Dropped
and
his
just-
hands and
it was
tried to get him
perfect.
to switch off. And
Yeah.
the opening fractions were very. You know, Arlington's the rail out in the middle of the track there gives you time to the first turn, and it gave Johnny time to, you know, just get him back onto his hops a little bit and drop in and get him to relax, because he never did that at Delaware. Probably my fault. We decided that, having watched the races at Delaware that day, the turf was very speed favouring, and we were drawn on the rail. And I asked Johnny just to try and make sure he got a position, and we didn't get to the front. And the horse was then very rank in behind horses. So I was very pleased to see him finish the way he actually did in the Kent. But Arlington was a different ball game again.
And again, that was only career start number 4, so he's still learning. You're still learning him, obviously. Well, where did you watch the race? And I will say, I then heard you come back on the television. You were very composed when you came back.
I
on
don't know
after.
about that. I had a couple minutes to decompress, that's for sure, but watched it in the paddock. There's a TV right there by the paddock office. I was watching it with about 15 other people and completely embarrassed myself, but good thing my wonderful PA and friend Harry Rice, the 4th, I think, what we say junior, was by my side, and I could just give him the good old bear hug. So yeah.
Well, as I say, you know, on that subdivision of 3-year-olds on the turf, the Grade 1 Secretariat, one of the big races of the year. So congratulations. And talk a little bit about what's the game plan going forward with Kara.
Well, the first thing was to get him home and make sure he was okay. He was tired for a couple of days, but then he started to bounce back. We took him back to the track yesterday. He jogged a mile, he galloped, and I would have given him one more jog day today, but he was so strong yesterday. We actually turned around and galloped, and he looked super this morning. So obviously the 2 races at Belmont stand out. We want to win in New York. We're a New York family, and you know, it's tough to win the Joe Hirsch with a 3-year-old, but it's been done several times before, Kitten's Joy, etc., or the Hill Prince. But I would say that probably giving weight to all the 3-year-olds in the Hill Prince rather than receiving it from older horses, we probably would lean towards running in the Grade 1 instead. You know, I put a lot of emphasis in weight, and you know, the Joe Hirsch, we'd received £5 from the older horses, and we ran a 2 1/4 faster than them at Arlington. So, you know, that's, if they want to give us a 10 to 15 length head start, then I'll take it. And obviously you have to start thinking about where next year this horse goes.
Sure.
I've always said to Jerry that this is a horse who, whatever he does this year would be a bonus, and the fact he's already won a Grade 1 is a, you know, I really do think this is a horse who could take us possibly to Royal Ascot, Dubai, etc., etc. He's a Giant's Causeway. You know, I'd love to take a horse like this home. If he kept improving in the right way, I wouldn't be afraid to do something like that.
Home for you, being overseas.
Yes.
And I was reading your Twitter feed, and you gave an appreciative tip of the cap to the Ragazin numbers, which came up very good for the horse.
Yeah, I mean, look, the number that he got on the Ragazin sheets was a huge number for a 3-year-old. But I actually think he deserved it. It was the fastest Secretariat, I think, in something like 17 years. And he ran a 2 1/4 faster than the Arlington Million. So for the I don't have a dig at them, but how the Bayer team came up with such a low number compared to Robert Bruce, I have no idea. And look, so thank you to Ragzon for being somebody who actually took it at face value and probably did a better job of handicapping them.
And as a trainer, do you use the numbers? Do you use some kind of figures in your training?
Yeah, I think we all look at them. I think that some of them do a better job of others, and some of them give more accurate information in certain types of races and at certain tracks. But I am a big fan of the Ragzon sheets, yes.
All right, I wanted to toss in one other replay because I wanted to show one of your wins up here at Saratoga so far this season. I want to go back really early in the meet. La Moneda, am I pronouncing that
yes,
right? La
yes.
Moneda.
The currency.
It does mean the coin or the money, but she's actually named after a Chilean temple. And that whole family are named out of that.
I kind of like the money. Better name for a racehorse. I like that. But again, this is going back to July 22nd. La Moneda, the number 1 horse here. Javier Castellano on board. Chart margin of 1 3/4. So a nice win for you early in the meet. What's the game plan for her? Come back.
She breathed this morning, and she will run in the Yaddo a week today.
Oh, okay.
Being a New York bred, and she's owned by the Mosleys, who obviously have Proctor's Ledge, and she will. She, I believe, is breezing as we speak on the turf, and I presume will go to the Bolson Spa. I did nominate this filly to the Bolson Spa as well in case Proctor's Ledge happened to stand on a stone or something, but she is a very, very talented filly. I have to say a massive thank you to Brendan Walsh and his team, because she wouldn't be in my barn without him. If he had a New York division year round, then she would be with Brendan still. So, I owe him an awful lot, because she's been a superstar for us this year, and really he did all the hard work. He got she went for a winter holiday, and he trained her through the spring and then sent her up to New York and had to run her on the slop, and then we took over from there. So, but she's done nothing but get better and better. She started late last year. She debuted as a 4-year-old up here, and had a relatively light 4-year-old campaign. I think she had 5 starts, a couple of wins, but she's really kicked on this year, and she's becoming a very, very nice filly. I think she's definitely got the ability to win a graded stake in her future. But she's very good at a 1-turn mile at Belmont. There's a grade 3 called the Athenia down there. So let's have a go at the New York breds first and see how we get on there.
Sounds good. And I sat with the Mosleys at the TRF Spaghetti Dinner. Very nice, and enjoyed my dinner with them, which brings me to one of the questions I wanted to talk to you about. I know you're a board member with the TRF, Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation, talking to some of the people there. Early in the meet, or before the meet started, you guys made a visit to Wallkill. Talk a little bit about that.
Oh, that was really special, kind of getting to visit Quick Call, who's 34 years old. I mean, he looks incredible. I mean, a really, really fun visit, and got to shoot the inmates working with them, and the one inmate was just incredible. I mean, just the way he spoke about working with them, and you could tell he was completely at ease, and the horses responded so nicely. And it is the security level there is pretty high. I mean, they searched us. You had to tell them exactly what was, going in and out. And so that was a little intimidating, because I had visited the one in Sykesville in Maryland, and I just, it was easy. But but just the TRF does great work. And they were the first ones to kind of recognize the fact that we need something for racehorses when they're done racing. And just kudos to them for keeping it going for as long, 35 years. Yeah,
it's become an issue for the races that they paid attention to over the past 5 or 10 years, and we have had some of the NITHA people in recently, and they're now concentrating on also second careers and retirements and whatnot. The TRF does a great job. And speaking of horses, I had to ask you, because it was a week or so ago, I was sitting with some folks in the club, some of the clubhouse seats, and it was one of the days where on television you were on horseback, and it was a 1 1/8 race, and so you were right out in front of us. And one of the gentlemen sitting with me said, "Man, she's on a nice looking horse." Are you on the same horse as that?
Yeah. Speaking of the Secretariat, Yeager actually ran in the Secretariat 5 years ago.
There you go.
He had a bit of a rough trip, but he's has had an interesting life. He's a Medaglia d'Oro New York bred, who started off in England for Tom's former employer in Jeremy Nozita, and made his way to us. Won a race for us at Aqueduct. Unfortunately, got hurt in a morning workout, but you know, we
He's
did
had
the
a very
surgery
cool,
on him.
he's had a
and-
very cool story. Very cool
Yeah,
story.
yeah,
That
and
horse.
he's fun.
He's running a secretariat. He's won a massive race at Ascot. He's won at Aqueduct. He should have won a race at Belmont, and then sadly he got hurt. But he's got he's unfortunately has to lump me around all morning, but then he gets the enjoyment of going to hang out with Maggie in the afternoons as well.
And so that's your horse that you use for television.
Yeah, that's him.
Very
Yeah,
good.
he,
Yeah,
he
like-
covers all the bases.
Like I said, he was getting a little love from our group. They were appreciating a very good-looking horse out there. Let's talk a little bit about that. I went out to the paddock yesterday, took some shots of you doing your gig out in the paddock. Folks can watch you every day on the simulcast signal, but now MSG and Fox Sports as well. Take us through your day and how you prep for a day at the races. You have the tablet, obviously, so you're going through the past performances, and I know a lot of what I appreciate and other people appreciate is not just what you're seeing that day, but you compare to what you've seen in the past. So kind of take us through the prep work that gets you into a racing day.
Well, Formulator is great for storing notes on horses. That's what I use. So when the horse is entered back in, you know, that pops up on their PPs, and I'm comparing what I had seen the time before to what I'm seeing now. And with the first-time starters, that includes going through all of their pedigrees, watching any sales workouts, and too, XBTV, you know, they put a lot of workouts too. So I get to watch them and how they move across a surface, the main track or the turf, and so that's kind of the prep work I do. I don't have to lean as heavily on handicapping necessarily, other than understanding how the race flow may play out, but I'm there just to give a full analysis of what I see from a horse physically.
And the MSG Fox Sports show, we saw you doing an interview, and we talked about you being on horseback. What does that involve, and how does that ramp up what your work level is?
Oh, it ramps it up quite a bit. I
sure.
mean, just the changing and then getting on Jaeger, and luckily, you know, we have a great team of assistants and people to help out and go get Jaeger ready for me. And so it's do my paddock analysis, hop on Jaeger, get out to the track, and, you know, it's great. Jaeger's funny that he might get a little excited, you know, when they're running a race, but once I go and I turn to the jockey and start talking to them, he is just glued with the horse. I don't have to worry about him at all, so it's fun, but it is a lot of work.
That's
Yeah.
fun. I never thought about that, but as a former racehorse, I guess when the race starts, he's kind of like, hey,
He
I'm
wants
ready.
to go with them,
Yeah,
you know, and
yeah.
it's like, no, you have to stay behind, and he doesn't quite understand that.
Also wanted to touch on the winter. You guys are down at the fairgrounds. Talk a little bit about the fairgrounds and how you like the racing down there and how you like the city in general.
Yeah, we love the city down there, and look, they do a tremendous job down there. It's a really, really good racing program, and you know, we don't have 200, 300, 400 horses like some of these bigger outfits, and it's very tough for us to compete year round with Chad and Todd. So it's getting away from those guys during the winter. Listen, the fairgrounds are still incredibly
Getting with Joe Sharp
competitive.
and
Joe
Brad
Sharp
Cox.
and Brad Cox and Steve Asmussen,
Yeah.
and you know, the names go on and on and on. It's a very, very competitive circuit, but it's also a great place for a young family like ours. And you know, I have to thank Naira for letting Maggie take a little bit of a lesser work schedule during January and February, and it means that she and Grace can come down and be with us down there. You know, we've had 2 good winters down there, but I think I probably have a better feel for what sort of horses I need to take there now. And certainly I'm going to take a good few more dirt horses with me this winter, and have a real go at it down there.
Before I let you go, it's a question. I kind of jumped on driving in yesterday, and now I think asked most people, but I asked Robertina Diodoro yesterday. Just a basic question. Trainer, it's a tough job, up early, 24/7, 365. What do you like? What draws you in? What's your favorite thing about being a trainer?
Things like last Saturday. You know, they don't come around all that often unless you're Chad. But you know, it is tough. There's no point in beating around the bush. It's not a job. It's a lifestyle. And you have to be 100% dedicated to what you do, because at the end of the day, it's a very big responsibility. I mean, we have 50 horses that we have to look after. We're not just looking after them, we're trying to ask them to be elite athletes, and you know, it's down to me to try and make sure they get to the highest possible level that they can, be a maiden 25 or be it Grid 1. You know, sometimes the most gratifying wins are winning with a slow horse or a tough horse or something. Just getting them into the winner's circle is huge. And I think that responsibility to the horse is probably the thing that gets me out of bed the most, because they can't look after themselves, so they need somebody to do it for them. And you know, you're trying to read the mind of an animal at the end of the day, and trying to get the best out of them.
And what do you enjoy about being on TV? For me, up here is great, and that's one of the things I like as a handicapper and a host, because I think we're pulling maybe some new people into the game, and I kind of like that aspect. I'm sure that plays into what you do a lot too, but what do you like about the TV gig?
I mean, I obviously up here you are looking at, you know, the best horses in the country and the most competitive racing, and you know, also, as you said, kind of getting to interact with different people. I mean, you know, it's the connections, it's the horses and the horsemen and the owners and everything like that, but also kind of getting to talk to people you wouldn't normally see at the races, and that is drawn to Saratoga just for what it is and the history that it is. And don't get me wrong, it's a lot of work. It really is, but you know, it's very rewarding at the same time. Yeah,
we can see how the work pays off. I catch like the late night replay of the MSG Fox Sport, but you guys do a great job. I used to own a television production company myself. Now I'm on this side of the camera, so I know how both sides work, and you can tell the amount of work that goes into it. And clearly there's a high amount of work on the trainer side of the game. As I say, 24/7, 365, taking care of the horses. So both working at a high level in the game, and wish you a lot of luck going forward on the TV side, on the training side as well, with Carrick and the rest of the stable, and through the rest of this meet also.
Thank you, Seth.
Thank you.
Maggie and Tom Morley join us this morning. Appreciate it, and good luck going forward. Thanks again to Tom and Maggie for stopping by. Always fun to chat with those two. Up next, Brian. Saturday morning had Chad Summers stop by. Of course, he has the very popular and potent Mind Your Biscuits.
So we've got two great races today. The Test, one of my favorite historic races here at Saratoga, and certainly the Whitney needs no introduction. But with that being said, I will bring in Chad Summers, who I think if he's not going to start the favorite in Mind Your Biscuits, he might start the horse to beat, and a lot of questions to answer. Chad, welcome. Saturdays at the Spa. Good luck today. How is Mind Your Biscuits coming into a very important test today?
Oh, it's doing great, and thanks for having me on this.
Yeah,
show
absolutely.
over here. You know, Whitney Day, obviously a big day, and you know, we're excited to play a big part in it.
Yeah, it's. I mean, the first question is the obvious question. 2 turns, a route of ground today has not been done. I said earlier on the Handicappers Report, he gives me no reason to think he can't do it. He's done everything else you've asked. He comes out of a great race in the Met Mile when he was nosed out and was closing hard again, like he always does. Your thoughts on him getting those 2 turns, getting a route of ground? I said kind of jokingly, I don't know if he can do it. Maybe you don't know if he can do it, but he gives you every indication he can.
Well, I mean, I don't know that he can't not do it, and that's kind of the whole kind of thesis behind this. You know, everybody out there has a strong opinion. You know, it's been all over social media that he can't do it, or he can't. You know, to me, until he can't do something, I don't see why he can't.
Exactly.
And, you know, everything that he's done has always shown us to do that. Look, we could have taken the easy ride out. We could have gone to the Belmont Sprint last year, go back for the 4-go again. But, you know, we think that he deserves the opportunity to stretch out. And we're not here for the free lunch. We're here to win this race.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would think the other good thing about this race is it's going to help you plot your path going forward, right? If he wins the Whitney or runs a bang-up second in closing again, I would think the bullseye is the Classic. You know, at the end of the year, if he runs poorly today, you can always kind of cut back, maybe the Kelso or even the 4-go, and then the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile at Churchill Downs this year is at 1 turn.
Well, I mean, I think there's a lot of things to consider. Obviously, you know, the Breeders' Cup is our big goal.
Sure.
And you circle that date on the calendar every year, and you know what this race would do would open up another avenue. So we have the Sprint, which we run 2nd and 3rd the last 2 years. We have the Dirt Mile, and maybe this opens up a window to the Classic. And really what would be the weakest of the 3 divisions right now, you know, the Sprint looking pretty strong, Imperial Hand, XY Jet, horses like that. The Dirt Mile, maybe Catalina Cruiser curls up in there, beat Jersey.
Right.
So right now the Classic is the one really with the question marks. You know, Accelerate obviously on the West Coast, but otherwise wide open division. The 3-year-olds haven't really impressed me yet to date. Justify will run against him in a farm, you know, at Coolmore or something like that. But I think it's a wide open division.
Yeah, it's a division seemingly there for the taking. We're going to pull up a couple videos. The first one, we're going to show the entire race of him repeating in the Dubai Golden Shaheen. And for my money as a handicapper, this was the performance of the year by anyone. If you're not familiar with the races at Meydan that day, literally every race was won on the lead And not only did he come from way out of it, but races were won on the lead with, lifetime Mendelssohn and the World Cup winner, Thunder Snow, and here's Mind Your Biscuits, dead last. I joked the other day, I watched this race several times. I'll throw it to you in a second. You can talk about it. And it's one of those races, I know Mind Your Biscuits won. I've seen it several times. I watch it in mid-stretch, and I'm saying to myself, did he really win? How did he get up? Phenomenal performance to come from where he did over that track that day.
I feel the same way, Brian. I was there live, and I'm still not sure that he won the race. The big thing really was, myself and Joel, we always have kind of game plan A, B, C, and D, and we went to game plan E here because actually in the UAE Derby before it, Rhea, the filly who ends up running second in the UAE Derby, hated the kickback. So the big thing, even though they said the rail was golden, we actually gone to get off the rail. We sacrificed even more ground to come. And over here, it looks like XY Jet's going to win the race.
Not even in the picture.
You got XY Jet, you got Roy H right behind the defending Breeders' Cup champion, and there are two horses that you have to run down to beat. And we had to run an A race, and we certainly ran an A race here.
Yeah, phenomenal. And then so this race,
I missed Tom Durkin not giving the call. But we need Tom Durkin to give that call.
Yeah, it was like Pumpernickel on Seinfeld there, getting up in time. So then we come back, Met Mile. A mile, it was a kind of a stretch out for this horse for that matter. B Jersey, kind of the now horse, maybe had things relatively his own way that day. Once again, you guys come running. We're going to pick it up, I believe, off the far turn. A race, your horse ran too good to lose. Talk a little bit about the Met Mile in the race he ran that day behind B Jersey.
Well, the concern going into the race was that B Jersey can get loose on the lead, and it kind of unfolded that way. We were hoping one liner would press a little bit more. Both all broke good, but wasn't able to go back. So it was up against us. And you see 45 and 3, and you say that's a respectable time, but 45 and 3 unpressured, and 45 and 3 pressured is a big difference. And that's what we're going to see here today. You can't let Diversify go 46 and change unpressured. So, a lot of our strategy is going to depend on what happens, after the first half mile as far as the rest of the race is concerned. And we're coming here. We're coming with every run. The only thing here is B Jersey, once he sees us, he kind of re-engaged a little bit. Ricardo Santana, great ride, having a great meet here.
Yeah, he is.
And, just able to hold us off. 3 jumps past the wire, we're in front. But unfortunately, you get paid for what the photo says, and the photo came up B Jersey.
You mentioned the pace today. I said on the Handicappers Report on our show earlier.
Did you pick us?
I did.
Okay.
I did. I said 2 things. Dalmore, I don't think has any chance of winning the Whitney, but I think you might agree he's the most important horse in the Whitney.
Oh, absolutely.
You're hoping, I would think, that Dalmore can, if nothing else, entertain Diversify for a half mile. You mentioned kind of what the plan is, and if there's a plan B out of the break. I said this. Now, the fact that you guys are stretching out from one turn, from 6 furlong, 7 races, mile races, in theory, you should be closer today because you've been stalking, closing into, hot paces. Do you expect your horse to be closer today with the added turn and slower splits, or is the plan still to, at least, right now, to take back and make a run?
You go back to that Met Mile, and he broke well in the Met Mile, and he put himself in a good position in the Malibu, the Belmont Sprint in the past, going 7, 8, 6 and a half. He's been able to put himself in good position. So I would definitely anticipate breaking. We break well. It's a short run to the first turn, kind of established position, make Diversify have to work to whatever he's going to do, make Diversify have to work, and at that point then see how the race develops in front of us. And, not only Dalmore, but to the inside, Tapper breaking from the rail, and he's been kind of the way you watch he breezes, he kind of breaks away real quick. Johnny Velasquez on for the first time in a long time, or maybe in the first time at all. So Johnny, you got to think, is going to push a little bit, and Back at Heaven has got to break from post 2 to Castellano. So, there's going to be a little bit of a scrum up over there, and you want to make sure you're not too far behind, and we'll see what happens with Dalmore as well.
Yeah, and I think you guys have a perfect post, and if fans aren't aware, the run into the first turn going 9 furlongs here on the main track at Saratoga is very tight, very quick. So Diversify will have to be used a little bit to, I don't know if it's to clear the field, but at least get position going in. And I think it creates for kind of a fascinating race. I know Rick Violet, who I'm going to have on in a little bit, was not going to run here, and now Diversify does come here. At least just from a handicapping perspective, his run in the Suburban was so huge, and you wonder if maybe he regresses a little bit. I think you guys are in a really good spot today. Your horse obviously is coming in here doing well. This was your race all along. I think maybe at least in theory, you catch Diversify at a good time too.
I think it's a possibility, but watching his breeze last Sunday, knowing that Rick was on the fence about what he wanted to do, so Backyard Heaven was working in company, Diversify, and I had one, and my eyes were on Diversify and Backyard Heaven. And Backyard Heaven, I didn't think breezed well the other day. I thought Curlo kind of outworked him, and we'll see him in the Alley Door on Sunday. Diversify, I thought, worked lights out. I've been watching him all palm medals this winter time, thinking that, at some point we're going to cross paths.
Of course.
And that breeze that he had on Sunday was the best breeze he's ever had in his life. And it really, really impressed me. And I knew right away at that point that Rick was going to run in the race.
Right.
That being said, a half mile, 5 furlong work, a lot different than running in a race.
Sure.
How much do you have left in the tank? And the one thing really, there's no doubt about, first of all, Rick's done a great job with Diversify, first for Windsor and then purchasing him back for Ralph and Lauren Evans. But at the end of the day, the big thing is that his best races are when he's loose on the lead.
Yeah.
He won the New York Bred Race 2 back, but he beat Pat on the back. And Mind Your Biscuits is a little bit better than Pat.
Yeah, and Pat on Your Back's at 85-1 in here. Yeah, I agree with that. You mentioned, you knew at some point you were going to tangle with Diversify. I would think it's pretty cool. You've got the all-time most, Mind Your Biscuits, the all-time leader, New York bred earnings. I think it's pretty cool that Diversify and Mind Your Biscuits are tangling now, as you said, in the Whitney, not the Evan Shipman or anything like that. Just talk about two New York breds who are, as you mentioned, one of the ones now in the handicap division that is there for the taking, and they are, whatever you think of the morning line, and that's what the general public, Diversify is 8-5 and Mind Your Biscuits is 9-5, or vice versa in here. In the Whitney handicap. That's pretty cool for the New York bred program.
I think it speaks in volumes of what the New York bred program is anymore. It's no longer a bunch of Utopias and Rizzies out there, but it's horses that can compete with the blue bloods everywhere. I mean, whether it be New York or Kentucky or Florida or Dubai or wherever. We won a Breeders' Cup race last year with Bar of Gold, kind of setting that standard there. And the first ever Grade 1 winner for New York bred was here in the Met Mile, in the Whitney before. So, it's one of those things to where New York breds can go anywhere, and we're proud to be from New York. I know Rick certainly, kind of everything that he's done for the New York program. So we have a lot of pride in that, and we're excited, and we hope that we're one too. We just hope that we're on top.
Yeah, for sure. Couple things before I let you go. Obviously, this is a horse you own in part with your family. You purchased this horse. You've seen it all happen in front of you since day one. $30,000 purchase, I think. Done pretty good. $3.9 million, and certainly counting. What's it been like to, again, see this horse develop from here on up and be where you are today as a legitimate, to me, favorite to win the Whitney?
It's kind of a great kind of blue collar story. We're a lunchbox family. He's a lunchbox horse, and when we bought him as a yearling, you have this vision. Not that he's going to win the Whitney or win any Great Estate race, but he's a cool New York bred, and maybe he can develop into a nice horse, make $150,000, go through your conditions, maybe win a race at Saratoga. Not this one. And so to see kind of as he developed and got better and better, and then by the time as a 3-year-old, we put the blinkers on him and took another leap up. But I remember as a 2-year-old running over here, he got beat by a horse named Champion of the Nile by Linda Rice. Right. And that was an $800,000 purchase. And that was the fastest 2-year-old race of the meet, faster than any of the open company races. So we always felt like he was a nice horse, but he just continued to get better and better. And the progression that he's done it, and the fact that he's traveled around the world 2 years in a row and has remained, super sound is a testament to my staff and the great job that they've done kind of taking care of him as well.
And the other thing too is he's run 2 huge races coming out of Dubai, and that's not something you see. You mentioned, all right, so he's 1-5 at Saratoga, but you hinted at kind of, and I think I don't disagree with you that there's been some, he's run big races here. He won the Amsterdam, obviously, as you said. He caught that good horse for Linda Rice, I think Lady Sheila Stables. So a little deceiving that maybe people look at that and say, well, he's 6 for 17 everywhere else. He's 1 for 5 at Saratoga. Not necessarily the case.
Kind of very similar to how we were last year or this year going to Dubai. We had lost 4 races in a row, and everybody was writing us off saying, well, you're done. And we said, no, we're sitting on our big race. Here, we're 1 for 5. I promise you this. His 6th race at Saratoga will be his best one, and you take with that what you want.
Good to hear. Last question. I know like you've got now some horses for Zayat and things like that. Obviously, I asked Jonathan Thomas this question too because he's done a really good job with Catholic Boy. I would think this horse has opened up a lot of doors for you.
A few.
A few.
Trying to go out of business though, so we'll see.
Right.
Chad Summers and Mind Your Biscuits second in the Whitney. It's going to be fun to see what's next as they potentially head to the Breeders' Cup Classic with Mind Your Biscuits. Up next, it is always a lot of fun when Lenny Shulman stops by. He, of course, writes for the Blood Horse, but a varied background as well. He stopped in to talk to Steve and me on the Sunday morning show. Lenny, up next. Good morning and welcome to Loose on the Lead, live from the Saratoga backstretch on this Sunday morning. Seth Merrow and Steve Bick, and sitting in between, Lenny Shulman. And happy to have you back, Lenny. We touted you as being on Friday, and nobody got to see you as there were technical difficulties, but I said, come back.
I have learned a lot in the last 48 hours, Seth. It's a good thing we put it off till today.
Yeah, very good.
What have you learned?
Acquired a lot of knowledge. Eating jambalaya causes indigestion. That's one thing I learned yesterday.
You were down at the Guillot jambalaya?
That is some good eating. The brothers Guillot, Chip and Eric hosted their annual eating fest at 10 in the morning, which is a very odd time to be drinking beer and eating jambalaya. But it was fantastic. Those guys do a great job.
We got in the cart and went down ourselves and enjoyed a little jambalaya. It was, and I think we've scheduled, we have to confirm it, but Dale Romans was down there too, so we may have a Dale-Eric duo in here on Wednesday morning.
You know, as a sidebar, you went to the Jambalaya Fest and you didn't tweet
I debated,
a picture?
But I have always said I'm off as soon as I tweet my lunch.
That's different. That's a very different scenario.
I wondered about that. Because it's more of an event lunch, so I maybe could have gotten away with it.
Well, you got to show the first graphic. We got some terrific imagery today, and you got to show the phenomena on the internet. This is really, it's a story. Oh, hey now, look at that, Seth Merrow. Didn't crop the photograph I gave him, but that's all right. 574 followers. This was a sensation.
It was 500 within the first 36 hours. So we blew up the internet a little bit, and they've all enjoyed my first 5 tweets. So it's.
Did you tweet it from the Jambalaya Fest or not?
No,
He didn't. He obviously from where? From Ciro's? Yeah, from Ciro's, a cockeyed drunk photograph. You can expect a lot of those from Seth in the future. People are debating. Yeah, look at that.
Can you lose followers? Can
please?
Because it's down to 330 now. It's dropping like
exactly. Just wait.
It's like my stock.
Are you going to follow anyone, or are you going to be one of those elitists that only allow followers?
I'm still
you don't want to follow
the etiquette
anybody.
down, but on Tuesday I'll kind of go through. I want to pick. You don't follow everybody, do you? You don't.
No, you don't. You're about 10%.
Okay.
I use 10%
The
as a measuring stick.
Yeah.
As a measuring stick.
I wanted to, go through and make a good decision. So I'm waiting for the day off.
All right. You don't strike me as the type that will buy followers.
Oh no! I'm not a buy follower person. No, robo.
You might sell a few followers if you build up enough of an inventory. Seth might sell.
But over on the front side, I've had a dozen people. I'm following you on Twitter, so it's
do something.
What was I waiting for?
That's the cockamamie thing from Ciro's. Do something. Sure.
I made a couple crappy picks yesterday, so that.
There you go.
Well, and you're not exactly.
Pressure.
You're not hardly.
I don't try to
social.
do that. When I get a follower, I think to myself, "Oh, are you going to be disappointed, buddy?" Because it's once a year. I think, "Oh yeah, that might be something I could tweet." I'm just not geared to it.
Well, but you send off one-liners to Dice.
Well, that's true. No, I'm mastering email now, so I'm getting there.
Among many things that you've mastered.
So no, I don't do a lot of tweeting, but I try to let my writing speak for itself.
Well, for those of you that aren't aware, Lenny actually writes about the sport in Blood Horse. if you're one.
Well, you're not aware because you don't get the subscription, I'm sure. So
who wants to subscribe? It's on the internet.
Who wants to read about Steve Bick in the magazine?
I would have read that. Why don't you? Oh, wait a minute.
Blood Horse, but the Dice reference, the Hollywood writing as well over the years.
Yeah, well, Steve and I were driving to dinner in Los Angeles. We had a three-way with Dice on the way over there. So Steve can speak to that.
I was
three-way, I said.
I was taking Lenny to the Dalray in Pico Rivera, which is my favorite joint.
Fantastic restaurant.
And he goes to call Dice, who he's been writing for and has been friends with for decades, and he puts him on the speaker. And so now I'm basically listening to Lenny and Andrew Dice Clay. And if you think that it's an act, if you think what you've gotten over the years from Dice Clay is some sort of a put on during when the cameras are on, the answer is no. The answer is the same shtick, live and just talking and jibing with Lenny. I threw my phone out. I've got it. I can play part of it.
So it's almost as entertaining as the Guillot phone call to Randy Romero.
That's one of the funniest things in the history of the sport.
Yes.
But no, it's one of my. That was a great moment.
Yeah, it was. It was a fun night. It was a fun night. So yeah. Anyway, from failing in Hollywood to failing as a turf rider, I've done it all.
Let's talk a little horse racing and
why
again you write for the Blood Horse, but let's get some of your opinions on what one of the stories of the year. Obviously, we have the stretch run to the Belmont. Justify wins the Belmont, subsequently retired, and so now the class is kind of trying to define itself underneath. We have the Travers coming up next Saturday. So just your feelings about Justify and his performance in the Triple Crown, and now how subsequently the 3-year-old class is kind of playing out.
Yeah, well, to answer your first question, and I know his career is always going to be defined by brevity as well as brilliance at this point. I think Justify is one of the absolute greatest racehorses I've ever seen. And I understand people are going to say 6 races. This horse is special. He was special in all 6 of his races. Looking at him, you could tell this was an animal that has something going on beyond his talent as a runner. This horse had it mentally, he had it physically, he had it in his heart, he had it as a warrior. I think this horse is one of the all-time great racers, and I'll tell you who else thinks so, is Bob Baffert, who, when he's not in front of the microphones and not in front of the cameras, has told people this horse was better than American Pharoah was, and I absolutely agree. I think he's a far superior horse to American Pharoah.
And I can speak to the opportunity Lenny had before everything really commenced, other than the maiden win. And as I've mentioned a number of times, I just so happened I had back-to-back trips to Los Angeles, to Santa Anita for Big Cap Week and for Santa Anita Derby Week. Lenny was out there for Big Cap Week as well, and he was going to do a feature on Baffert,
on you
and on me.
Baffert.
And Baffert took him to the barn and said, "You want to see the Derby winner?" And of course, the assumption was at the moment McKinsey might be that, but it wasn't. And he brought Lenny to see Justify, and the fact that I was there for the second start, which was Sunday after Big Cap Day, and then was there for the Santa Anita Derby, and then for the Triple Crown. Got to see 5 of his 6 career starts, and I'm in the same camp, and I was mystified through the Triple Crown, and you and I talked about this extensively, Seth. The minimalization, the eagerness to take the brief career and somehow compartmentalize it to say that as a result he can't be an all-time great and he can't be considered among the elite, and it's not fair. I mean, obviously you got to speculate what might have been, but these 6 starts in what essentially was what came every 18 on the average of 18 every 18 days is really unheard of in this era, and that alone makes him special.
Yeah, think about the time frame in which he accomplished what he accomplished, and I get it. I get why people want to see longevity, and they want to see racing against older horses and a 4-year-old. I get all that. You cannot take away anything that this horse did in those 111 days. You just can't. And I'll confess something here. Because of my early union with Baffert and that horse, I always felt something special with that horse. And I've signed with a literary agent to shop a book that I'm proposing on Justified.
Oh, tremendous.
So I am
That's
kind
great.
of prejudiced about this, but I've written 3 chapters. I've written a 50-page proposal. I've done a lot of work on this, and it's a real agent, and I'm just knocking on wood that they find the publisher interested in it, because it's a story that it's not Seabiscuit, but in a way it's a modern day Seabiscuit, because you have communist Chinese and born again Christians and the George Soros angle and the Saul Kuhlman angle and the Jack Wolf angle and the Bob Baffert and the Mike Smith and the John Gunn. It's really
got
a
everything.
phenomenal story, plus Umberto Gomez and what he went through with the death of his father, and he chose to stay with the horse through the Triple Crown. It's a wonderful story with a lot of different elements, and I'm really hoping I get the chance to tell it.
Excited for you and excited for readers. It'd be refreshing, actually, to have a book about the Triple Crown winner from somebody that likes racing.
And with quotes from participants in it.
Yeah,
which-
that the participants might actually talk to. Nobody will have to be tricked into talking to you. That's the best part.
So I've been kind of living with Justify a lot lately, and
well, you've got a lot to justify, frankly.
That's right. That's right. So,
I love it. That's great, Len.
Yeah,
That is
yeah.
good.
But to get to your other parts, before the Derby, this was the deepest field of 3-year-olds in
Yeah, and then it was
memory.
the world's worst.
And man, they just started dropping and dropping and dropping. But I've always felt this. I've always felt that Good Magic is the second best 3-year-old in this crop, and thank goodness he's still around. And I think we're going to see something special in the Travers, and I think he's a special horse.
Bob Edwards is going to join us actually in a little bit. We'll talk to Bob about yesterday Rushing Falls win, and he was delighted with that, obviously, and in the Lake Placid, and salvages one of the 2 3-year-old stakes on the grass. They were lucky to salvage a grass race at all yesterday.
Yeah.
And obviously he's got Good Magic coming up on Saturday in the Travers. So Bob Edwards, E5 Racing, another one of the good stories that's emerged over the last 3 years.
I mean, everybody goes up to Bob now and says, God, you're lucky, God. And it's true. To win a Breeders' Cup race in your first year, come back and win 2 Breeders' Cup races in your second year, plus all these other fantastic races that he's won now, the Haskell and everything out of the Bluegrass with Good Magic. What a phenomenal. And going into the Derby, God, were they high on that horse. They were just
good reason.
giddy.
With good reason.
Chad and Bob and Barbara Banke and John Moynihan, and these people have seen a lot of good horses, and John Moynihan knows his stuff. And they were giddy. They were floating this far off the floor. Every day that horse came back from the track, and John Moynihan, I just remember coming up to me, what do you think? This is great. What do you think? And I said, well, there's a pretty good horse over in barn 33. And the color kind of drained off of his face, and I was like, oh my God, I said, well, if you two were coming down the stretch together, that would be pretty good, wouldn't it? And son of a gun, it pretty much happened that way. But I think Good Magic is absolutely the next best, and we're going to see him.
Let's, in fact, on a quick note, let's a review of where we stand right now. Looks like 10. We keep hearing, and Mendelssohn, the latest addition to the
Travers.
Oh yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Where you been? Your
I
little
sleep
jambalaya. Jesus, what is wrong with you? Good Magic, Mendelssohn, Catholic Boy, Wonder Gadot. So right there, you've got 4 intrigue storylines. By the way, speaking of Wonder Gadot, she didn't need to show up at Woodbine yesterday. Mark Cassie wins a Triple Crown anyway because Nipawa wins the Breeders. So Cassie sweeps the Canadian Triple Crown for the first time in his career. Gronkowski, of course, another intriguing storyline. Tenfold, Vino Rosso, Hofberg, Bravazzo, and King Zachary. That's a very nice field of 10 with a lot of fun stories.
That's even a better field than the Jim Dandy. Oh!
Speaking of dice. Oh! Are you getting a lot of that on that phone call?
A little bit. No, there wasn't a lot of that. But that, I think you said the right word. Very intriguing. I mean, 7 of those horses have major exclamations or question marks. Hofberg, certainly everybody's waiting to see, if he can put it together. Gronkowski, after the Belmont coming back from that, of course, the filly. Catholic boy? Is he a dirt horse? Is he a turf? Can he do it both? Can
Right.
he do it all?
Right.
Mendelssohn, can he do anything at this point? And Good Magic, who, you know, it's looking at the ahead to the Breeders' Cup Classic. You have to figure there's a lot of intrigue there also with the John Sadler horses and what they can
Well.
and can't do. You know, Good Magic stepping up against them. It's very interesting.
On that topic, do we want to look at that? Did we throw the Pacific Classic in?
Yep.
A couple of stories from yesterday, including that Breeders, the Canadian Triple Crown season ends. But last night, if you didn't see Accelerate, watch the Pacific Classic here, and he absolutely sits comfortably and then explodes without any ask. Joel Rosario, in the absence of Victor Espinoza, Ron Anderson, Johnny on the spot, you didn't even get a chance to see Accelerate sitting and just basically waiting for his cue. And I didn't even think he got cued by Rosario. He basically just took him to the lead, and now gets shaken up, and that's it. That goodbye.
Chart margin of 12 is a 2-5 favorite in there. Pavel runs second. Prime Attraction runs third. Dr. Dorr runs fifth in the field of 7, but yeah.
And by the way, don't look. This is winning by a pole, but don't sleep on Pavel, who is a nice horse and who ran very well at Churchill Downs in the Clark. So he gets to go back for the Breeders' Cup Classic. I'm sorry, Stephen Foster.
115 buyer, by the way, career best for Accelerate.
Now, I hate to say this, but John Sadler, who's a wonderful trainer out in California, has had a passel of fine horses out there, has not been successful outside of California, and has not been successful in the Breeders' Cup, quite honestly. Has Catalina Cruiser maybe coming here for the Woodward? That'll be an indication of winning outside the state, certainly. But, you know, you can't give away anything to anybody here. Everybody's got a little bit of a question mark to go with the exclamation mark. So, and it looked like, I hadn't seen this race before, it looked like Accelerate. He looked like he was looking over to his right coming down the stretch there a little bit. The way he threw his head there, I don't know. Could be nothing. Could be something.
We'll talk to Sadler tomorrow on radio. And
what a performance! But it's you know, the Classic, much like the Travers, a lot of intrigue and a lot of question marks. But
yeah, the older division is as up in the air as the 3-year-old division is now with Justify on the sidelines.
Right. I don't know how do you guys sold on Diversify going forward, or
well, certainly Diversify, and I think Mind Your Biscuits. I think they're going to stick with 2 turns for at least another start and see if maybe the Breeders' Cup Classic is sitting out there. They both looked good the other day, and Diversify had it all its own way. That's the key.
Yeah.
You know,
with him and Accelerate, you know, that's nobody's going to have it their own way quite as easily.
Well, but watching Accelerate yesterday, he is not a demand the lead type, and frankly, Diversify is getting a little bit easier to sit with in the early stages. So that part of it, it's nice actually to have 2 kind of maturing, homegrown talents as you know at this age. It's a rarity actually, and I'm not going to compare it to the way, what was it, Bernardini Lava Man they were trying. Remember when they tried to make the East Coast West Coast confrontation between the 2 of them? Yeah. But it is a good starting point as we build, and then let's get through the Travers and the Pennsylvania Derby, and then you'll have the 3-year-olds. You know, they're going to turn around and compete, of course, the Jockey Club Gold Cup, and you did hear. I'm not sure what you've been hearing and what you haven't, but they're renaming the front runner out at Santa Anita to the American Pharaoh.
Are they?
Yes. If you haven't heard that.
Well, I mean, the front runner is such a traditional name. I'm kind of sorry to see it go, but and let's not sleep on Catalina Cruiser. Looked fantastic in the San Diego. I understand he wasn't beating much in there, but I'd be very anxious to see his next race and see what we've got.
Well, and of course, a year ago, Sadler and Cosnaronis used it as the launching point for Accelerate to kind of kick him off, and when he surprised Arrogate.
Yeah, very good. I think what we're lacking in the 3-year-old division all of a sudden from the Derby to now. You know, I was talking to Jack Wolf yesterday, who's a big fan of the show, by the way. And, you know, he was saying, gee, you know, we had Audible here. We had, you know, he had a lot of horses that looked like they were going to go forward and blossom. And, God, they just...
No, it's
it's a horrible sport that way when they're just here today and gone tomorrow. But
He was aboard. Wait a minute. He was. They were aboard for the Triple Crown winner. What do you think? We're going to feel sorry for Jack now for the Starlight team after they rode the Justified train?
I'm not saying you have to feel sorry, but you know, Jack and Saul didn't have a piece of those breeding rights. They had racing rights. And the fact that he went away early, you know, hurt. You know,
there's a chapter.
There's a chapter. Well, it's not a chapter, but it's a. I'm sure they were hoping to get a little more length out of that career. But no, when you win the Triple Crown, you do not.
You can't complain.
Get felt badly for.
Speaking of chapters, I saw where you had the graphic of Lenny's latest novel, and slap that up there as well. Lenny now has got 2 back-to-back. Terrific reads. If you aren't aware, you can pick them up at Amazon and similar.
Yes.
This
is
Points.
Yes. For those who like their basketball with their horse racing, we've got a good point shaving scandal, a mystery, a thriller, and some comedy in there. So available at Amazon. It's a good read. I actually got a hell of a notice in the New York Post a little while ago from Mike Vaccaro, fine sports writer at the New York Post.
You read it and loved it?
Gave it a very positive review of Points.
When you order Points, also order Long Way Home.
Long Way Home, and follow me on Twitter. It'll be a fantastic. You'll do much better with the books than the Twitter.
The books are a series, though, right? You got a character.
Yeah, it is. It's a rampaging reporter who uncovers. The first book, Long Way Home, is about a scandal at the Kentucky Derby, and this one is a college basketball thing. So
you killed off the Haskin character, right?
The Haskin character does not make an appearance. I had to let it go by popular demand.
All right.
I shouldn't say it's a spectacular murder in the second book of the Haskin character.
Oh. All right. Well, we got to let you go. Not by popular demand. Popular demand is saying, bring Lenny back more and more. But again, you can pick up the book at the various online booksellers. Points is the latest one. I'm going
to follow him on Twitter now.
Exactly.
It came out the beginning of the summer, right? It's fairly recent.
It came out actually it coincided with the Final Four.
Oh, okay. There you go.
And with, frankly, all the scandals happening in college basketball this year, it was a good time for it to come out.
PR worked out.
I had it all going for me.
All right, Lenny, appreciate the visit, and again, check out the book. That takes us through part 2 of our season recap for the 2018 Saratoga season. Tune in next time, part 3, more fascinating interviews.